Ariana casually looked over at where the sacred imperial spider had pointed, but showed no interest. Instead, she quickly went back to pick up the badges. The spider was slightly offended by her nonchalant behavior, so she lightly kicked Ariana in the butt and said, "It's right over there. Just past that big tree. Don't be so lazy. Go!" Ariana rolled her eyes at the spider and retorted with a hint of anger and frustration. "Whom are you calling lazy?" She was angry, but knew when to pick her battles and when she was outmatched. The spider was a peak spiritual overlord, so Ariana decided not to argue with her. But Ariana's eyes suddenly lit up with the realization that the spider must have eaten many soldiers over the years and must have all the badges. The idea excited her, and she rushed to fetch Jake. When she got close enough to him, she exclaimed, "Badges! It must be badges! We've hit the jackpot!" Jake's brow furrowed as he looked at Ariana suspiciously before he asked, "Are you sure? Why would that spider be so helpful?" Ariana retorted with childish glee, "Because we're buddies now." Jake rolled his eyes and knocked her on the head. "Wake up! That's a peak spiritual overlord. Do you think you're buddies? Do you know anything about her?" he asked. "Ouch! What did you do that for?" Ariana asked as she rubbed her forehead. Jake's knock had left a small red mark on her forehead. Ariana knew she was right and was determined to prove her friend wrong. "We have nothing to lose if we go check it out. If the spider wanted to eat us, she would have done it by now," she said, trying to convince Jake. He reluctantly agreed, and they made their way toward the pit. When they reached the opening of the pit, they were astonished. To call it a pit was an understatement, as it was as large as a football field. "What's that smell?" Ariana asked as she clapped her hands over her nose. Jake replied sarcastically, "I think that's your buddy's shit." Ariana couldn't believe it. She pouted her lips, almost teary-eyed, and asked, "Where are the badges?" At that moment, she heard laughter coming from behind her. Ariana and Jake turned to see who it was, only to find it was the sacred imperial spider. She laughed so hard that the wood panels holding up the cave shook. Ariana's angry expression didn't help, as it made the spider laugh even louder. Ariana was so furious at her gullibility that a vein almost popped on her forehead. She ran toward the spider, kicked her, and yelled with teary eyes and anger, "How dare you make fun of me? I thought we were buddies." "Buddies?" the spider repeated and laughed so hard that her voice turned hoarse. Jake, on the other hand, didn't react as quickly as Ariana. But when he realized what had happened, his eyes popped and he wondered, "Does this girl have a death wish? What is she doing?" To his disbelief, the man-eating spider wasn't furious. Instead, she continued laughing and ignored what Ariana was doing. Jake felt the stories about the Beast King might not have been entirely true. Ariana, on the other hand, had lost all sense of reason because she was so enraged. She kicked the spider repeatedly while exclaiming, "Stop laughing!" The spiritual imperial spider stopped laughing and said, "You're so funny. I'm going to reward you." "There," the spider said as she pointed at another spot 100 yards from where they stood. Ariana pouted and asked, "Do you think you can fool me again?" "Are you going or not?" the spider inquired with a tone of seriousness. Ariana, noticing the spider's solemn expression, replied in resignation, "Fine, I'll take a look." Then she turned to Jake and asked, "Are you coming?" Jake was tired of all the walking. After all, he knew the spider was only toying with Ariana, so he sat down on a stump and waved Ariana off. The spider beast was surprised again by how unpredictable Ariana was. All the humans she had encountered until then were stiff and dull. None of them were as lively as this girl. "She's full of energy and very adorable," the spider thought. She watched as Ariana walked away before turning to Jake. At that moment, the kindness on her face was gone, and the ferocity of a beast was back. She suddenly glared at Jake and moved toward him like he was her prey. Jake felt a chill run down his spine, as he knew what that look meant. So he quickly stood up, exclaiming while running in Ariana's direction, "My dear friend, wait, I'm coming!" He ran as fast as his legs could carry him. In a matter of seconds, he was by Ariana's side. Ariana was crouching by the edge of another pit, looking down with sparkling eyes. "My buddy is so lovely. She's the best in the world. Look, there are so many badges," she exclaimed as she pointed inside the pit. She didn't look back when she spoke to Jake, so she didn't notice that he was covered in sweat. "Lovely," Jake repeated with disgust, but he remembered the look in the spider's eyes and immediately changed his tone. He continued, "Yes, I suppose she's quite lovely." The young lord then looked in the other direction Ariana had pointed, which was the size of a basketball court. "Do you see those bones?" Ariana asked. "Beneath them are the badges," she added with a tone of excitement. Jake was astonished and replied, "Wow!" Ariana then stared from the pit to Jake, nudged him, and ordered, "Go get them." Jake was taken aback by her bossiness and asked, "Why me? Why can't you go do it?" Ariana feigned a sad tone and explained, "Well, if you want to see a pretty girl rummaging through a pile of bones, I guess I can go." "I'll do it," Jake said reluctantly before Ariana could finish her statement. He only agreed to go into the pit because he felt guilty. "Don't I always claim to be Ariana's friend? A good friend would never forsake their friends in need," he thought. It was as though Ariana could read his thoughts as she said, in her most adorable voice, "You're the best friend a girl could ever have." That piece of flattery seemed to do the trick on Jake, as he scratched his head and felt like the happiest man in the world. The young lord rolled up his trousers and jumped into the pit. He crawled around in the pile of bones, picking up the badges. Ariana stayed on the surface and cheered him on. At that moment, the spider joined them and looked at Ariana in surprise. Ariana wanted to keep their partnership running, so she asked in a concerned tone, "Are you still hungry?" The spider still felt full, so she didn't bother answering. Ariana wanted to provoke the spider, so she smiled and said, "Don't tell me you're full. You told me you could eat 100 people. Were you lying to me?" The spider felt her pride was wounded, so she glanced at Ariana and said firmly, "I meant it." To prove herself, the spider added, "If you don't believe me, you can bring more people here and I'll eat them." Ariana smiled, rubbed her nose as if the spider had fallen for her trick and said, "All right, I'll find some more people, but it'll take time. I heard there's a fire in the center of the woods, and many people have gathered there." "You mean in the Peacock's King territory, don't you?" the spider said as she smirked. "That peacock isn't the friendliest in the forest. If you upset him, you're dead," she warned. Ariana replied with certainty, "Little Phoenix will protect me." The spider frowned when she heard what Ariana said, and she explained, "Little Phoenix pulled off all the peacock's feathers once, and he's been trying to take revenge ever since. But unfortunately, he's not as nice as me. So if you take Little Phoenix with you, that peacock will eat you alive." Ariana became tense, and beads of sweat formed on her forehead. In her head, she asked Little Phoenix if what the spider said was true, and he searched his memory before telling Ariana in an uncertain tone, "I don't remember anything from that far back. If my memory serves me right, I did something like that to a fierce little peacock once. I think I roasted him over a volcano, too." Ariana clapped her hands over her mouth as she was astonished. "Over a volcano?" she repeated. "How many magical beasts have Little Phoenix messed with?" Ariana wondered as she sighed inwardly and turned back to the spider. "Can the Blue Sky Kingdom people move freely in the peacock's territory?" she asked. "That's an idiotic question," the spider retorted. Ariana gave her an innocent look, further softening the spider's heart. Now that the spider knew Ariana better, she felt she couldn't send Ariana to her death, so she explained. "The people of the Blue Sky Kingdom worship that peacock, so they only need to ask permission to pass through his territory." Ariana was curious about what she had just heard and asked, "Do my people not worship the peacock?" The spider sighed in frustration and retorted, "You don't even have a semi-divine medicine refiner, so what can you offer a beast king in worship?" "A semi-divine medicine refiner?" Ariana mouthed as her eyes lit up. "Can I bribe a beast king with the medicine created by a semi-divine medicine refiner?" she asked. The spider said proudly, "Not necessarily. We only accept certain types of pills. Why do you ask? You're just an ordinary little girl." The spider had complicated feelings about Ariana, finding her rather interesting, but also wanting to eat her. The fact that the soldiers she had killed told her that Ariana had divine phoenix blood made her even more tempted to eat the girl. Ariana glanced at the spider, noticing her conflicting feelings, and asked, "You still want to eat me, don't you?" The spider had a hard time suppressing her instinct. If Little Phoenix hadn't threatened her, she might have eaten Ariana already. She stared at Ariana, and the look in her eyes became that of a predator. Jake, who was still in the pit, had heard the conversation between Ariana and the spider and felt a chill run down his spine. He ran to Ariana's side, shielded her with his body, and yelled, "Eat me! Leave her alone!" Ariana was taken aback by Jake's dramatic behavior. She patted him on the back and said, "Calm down." Jake was intent on protecting Ariana that he yelled, "Quiet! I'm trying to save you!" The look in the spider's eyes became sinister, and she bared her fangs. Ariana knew she had to diffuse the building tension, so she took out her little cauldron and started mixing different herbs and potions to make a pill. The sacred imperial spider didn't know what Ariana was doing and hissed at her. "This girl isn't skilled, and Little Phoenix can't protect her forever. This is my chance to eat her," she thought as she moved closer to Ariana. Ariana ignored the spider and kept mixing her herbs in the cauldron. The spider suddenly stopped halfway toward Ariana. She was astonished when Ariana pulled a semi-divine golden pill out of the cauldron. It was as though the sacred imperial spider's hunger had vanished. She stared at Ariana without saying a word. By the standards of magical beasts, Ariana was just a cub, so the king beast was reluctant to accept that an unskilled human like her could make a pill of such high quality. However, she knew it was true since she had witnessed Ariana making it. The spider finally understood why the girl spoke with such confidence, and she realized that Ariana was a semi-divine medicine refiner, which was very rare in human society. She reckoned that Ariana was probably more useful to her alive than dead, so she decided not to eat her. "You're skilled for a human," the sacred imperial spider said seriously as she looked Ariana in the face. Ariana stared back at the spider before throwing the pill at her and asking, "Shall we talk about our partnership now?" The arachnid nodded in response to Ariana's question. Apart from Jake, nobody knew what their agreement was. After all, he was the only other person who had heard their conversation. Ariana soon left to get more food for the spider, leaving Jake behind. Fortunately, the spider no longer intended to eat Jake since more food was coming, so she ignored him and started cultivating. Before Ariana left, the sacred imperial spider had given her one of her seals, which was a golden spider. The other beast kings would respect that golden spider seal, so as long as Ariana didn't offend them, they wouldn't attack her. Ariana carefully put the golden spider in her pocket and put on a disguise of an ordinary-looking blue sky girl with a dull face and thin frame. When Ariana walked out of the woods, she was surprised to find that Lord Ulrich was still sleeping and snoring loudly. His presence there meant Ariana had 3 choices. The first option was to sneak up on him and kill him. The second option was to ask the sacred imperial spider to kill him. And the third option was to avoid him and head for the Peacock King's territory. Ariana thought, "Lord Ulrich is more skilled than any of those Blue Sky Kingdom assassins, so killing him won't be easy. The spider isn't a great option either. Getting her here in time will also be a problem." Ariana finally made her decision and sprinkled something on Lord Ulrich before making her way to the Peacock's territory. Her journey to her destination was easy, and she quickly realized that the sacred imperial spider was right. With the golden spider seal on her, all the beast kings let her through their territories without giving her any trouble. The sacred imperial spider had explained to Ariana how the central region was divided into 7 areas and had shown her where they are. The spider would have never treated Ariana so respectfully if she hadn't proven her strength as a semi-divine medicine refiner. Ariana had a familiar feeling about the central woods, but didn't think much of it. It was only later that she realized why. It looked a lot like the city she used to reside in her previous life. The central area was the city's center, and the 7 Beast Kings' territories were the 7 districts around it. When the spider asked her if she remembered the map, she immediately said yes. The spider had thought she was bragging, but she did remember it. The layout was very similar to the city she had lived in. So she knew that all she needed to do was travel along the borders of the districts without offending the Beast Kings, She was right. Nothing happened during her journey, and she reached the Peacock King's territory without causing any incidents. The Peacock King knew instantly that somebody had entered his territory. However, because the people of the Blue Sky Kingdom worshipped him, he didn't mind them walking in his territory. Moreover, Ariana was giving off the energy of a blue sky assassin, so the Peacock King ignored her. He only turned around and went back to sleep, snoring like a pig. Ariana sensed his intimidating energy, but only smiled and bowed her head ever so slightly. The only thing she had to worry about once she had gotten past the peacock was the legendary Mr. Paganis. She ran into blue sky assassins occasionally, but she looked just like one of them, so they didn't pay her much attention. Moreover, they usually covered their faces with masks, which made them even more unrecognizable. They could only tell one another by the energy they gave off. All blue sky people had that unique energy, and a person from the Mystic Kingdom couldn't fake that energy. Because of that, they weren't worried about spies. However, their confidence was misplaced because Ariana was an exception, and she was able to slip in undetected. After entering the Peacock King's territory, she noticed far fewer assassins. The immortal spirit fruit tree grew near the volcano's crater, so Ariana slowed down when she was close enough. Mr. Paganis might be nearby, she reasoned. She heard a noise up ahead, and she concealed her energy. She was hiding in the bushes when she peered through a crack in the leaves. To her shock, she saw a fire raging ferociously on a nearby mountain that appeared to be turning the sky bright orange. The color was magnificent, and Ariana could sense that the spiritual essence was much denser there. The air was also much thinner. If she could survive, it would only take half the time she normally took to cultivate. Ariana started to feel lightheaded after crouching in the bush for a while. When she looked around, she realized that the place wasn't conducive for cultivators below the spiritual overlord level. Then she noticed a valley at the foot of the cliff. The sun was setting, but she could still see what was down there. There was a house near the volcano's crater, but it wasn't an ordinary house of the type Ariana had seen before. In front of it was a lawn, which had been mowed. The grass seemed so green and fresh, and it glistened as the last of the day's sunlight shone on it. A table had been set, and someone was making tea on a small stove. The man had long hair and was reading in a chair. He was an elegant and refined middle-aged man, and the book seemed to fit perfectly in his regal hands. "Mr. Paganis," Ariana murmured as she clapped her hands over her mouth in shock. Her breathing quickened a little. Mr. Paganis immediately looked in her direction as though he could sense her presence. Luckily, Ariana was fast and hid in the bush, slowing her breathing. Mr. Paganis slowly turned his head and returned to his book. Ariana quietly left the bushes, trying her hardest not to make a single sound. She only stopped holding her breath when she was over 1,000 yards away from him. Her forehead was covered in sweat. She knew Mr. Paganis was skilled, but hadn't anticipated him to be that skilled and intuitive. "He's more advanced than a spiritual king," she reasoned. "He's probably a spiritual overlord." Ariana wanted to cry because she knew she wouldn't have to run like a coward if she was stronger. She had worked so hard to become a spiritual king, but when she arrived at the Peace Grassland, she found the place overrun with spiritual overlords who were more than her match. She paused from the running, crouched in the bushes, rubbed her chin, and racked her brain for a plan to retrieve the immortal spirit fruit safely without endangering herself. Only a disorganized person would think improvising in a life-or-death situation was a good idea. Ariana, however, always had a plan. She was so caught up in staring at the immortal spirit fruit tree that she had let her guard down, allowing Mr. Paganis to almost spot her. The tree wasn't hidden. It was in plain sight, and Mr. Paganis was sitting by it. The Blue Sky Kingdom had built a house next to it, so the fruit could be harvested as soon as it ripened. Ariana wished she could grab the fruit and run, but she couldn't do that. She couldn't handle Mr. Paganis, let alone all the assassins hiding nearby. She rubbed her nose as she tried to come up with a plan. Just then, she heard a voice. "Master Apollo, do you think the divine phoenix blood is real?" A boy with a tiny voice asked. "Master Apollo?" Ariana whispered as she recognized that name. She remembered that name because she recalled the gossip about Master Apollo Inti, who had a relationship with the Crown Prince of the Blue Sky Kingdom. Ariana remained silent, barely breathing. Master Apollo sounded annoyed as she snapped. "The divine phoenix blood? Dawson, since when did you become so stupid?" Dawson's face flashed red, and he replied nervously. "But according to the information I received, Ariana Grace has divine phoenix blood. My master seems to believe it." Ariana already knew Master Apollo was an important figure in the Blue Sky Kingdom, but didn't know who Dawson's master was. Ariana's interest was piqued at the mention of her name, and she reasoned. If this boy can move freely in this area, he must be no ordinary soldier. Can his master be that middle-aged man I saw under the tree? Master Apollo sized Dawson Connolly up and asked condescendingly, "Are you hiding behind your master's name to undermine my authority?" Dawson was surprised at that question, as her accusation had never crossed his mind, so he said apologetically, "Of course not." Master Apollo continued, "Mr. Paganis is your master, not your father. He won't like you flaunting his power like this. He'll kick you out without hesitating if he gets wind of how you disrespected me." Dawson seemed scared and retorted nervously, "My master is the best. He's the cleverest man in the world, so I'll obey him even if he kicks me out." Master Apollo snorted at the boy's insolence and snapped, "Not necessarily." Dawson was surprised and asked, "Do you mean that there's someone smarter than my master?" Master Apollo replied with a smirk, "Of course there is." "Who?" Dawson asked with genuine interest. Master Apollo pointed toward the fortress and said, "The prince." Dawson was confused and asked, "Do you mean that crown prince of Mystic Kingdom?" Ariana kept very still at the mention of Warwick. She wrapped her arms around her knees and hid in the tall grass. The two people had no idea she was there. They didn't use Warwick's real name. They only referred to him as that crown prince. That was how much Warwick intimidated them. The conversation continued, so Ariana sat down in the grass and listened attentively to them. Master Apollo nodded. Her expression softened and she said, "Yes, I'm talking about him. He's so intelligent and skilled that even Mr. Paganis isn't his match." "That's impossible!" Dawson exclaimed in disbelief. He practically worshipped his master and would never tolerate such a statement. Master Apollo smirked and continued, "I know Mr. Paganis is very powerful, but I saw with my own eyes how that crown prince defeated him. You weren't around back then. That's why you know nothing about it." Dawson pouted with displeasure. Master Apollo patted him on the head, trying to console him, and said, "You were only a child when your master took you out of that place, so understandably, you worship him. I know Mr. Paganis is extremely intelligent, but this world is full of capable people, some of whom are more powerful than your master. Don't get angry, though. That crown prince won't live for much longer. He'll die once our crown prince takes the pill made from the immortal spirit fruit." Dawson felt a little relieved that his master's rival would die soon. Ariana narrowed her eyes as she tried to process all she had heard. Master Apollo left Dawson alone after she had tried to console him. Ariana saw that moment as the perfect opportunity to implement her plan. And before the boy could make a sound, she attacked him. She struck a few of his vital energy points, which paralyzed him. Dawson glared at Ariana. He tried to move, but he couldn't. "You're very upset, aren't you?" Ariana asked. The boy grunted and tried to struggle. Ariana patted him on the shoulder and continued, "You don't need to know who I am, and I'm not letting you go either." Dawson murmured through gritted teeth, "My master will kill you." Ariana chuckled and replied, "I don't think your master can kill me. Now, enough with the chit-chat. Answer my questions, and I might just let you go unharmed. Tell me everything about you." Dawson stared at her, determined not to say a word. Ariana sighed and said, "I don't have much truth serum left. Why are you forcing me to use it?" Dawson frowned when he realized what Ariana was about to do. He tried to spit the fluid out when she squirted it down his throat, but Ariana covered his mouth and forced him to swallow it. Before feeding the truth serum to him, Ariana had removed his robe and put it aside. Dawson didn't know why she did that, but he had a very bad feeling about it. She was asking about his personal information and had removed his robe. What does she want to do? He wondered nervously. He didn't want to tell her anything, but the serum was too potent, and he eventually told her everything she wanted to know. Ariana now had a complete profile of the boy. She needed it for her plan to be successful. Ariana had never before put so much effort into pretending to be somebody else. But her current opponent was Mr. Paganis, who was supposedly the cleverest man in the Blue Sky Kingdom. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes, or she would be doomed. The woods were filled with Blue Sky assassins. If her cover was blown, she could only imagine how miserable her death would be. Ariana made Dawson tell her all his habits and how he interacted with his master. Dawson panicked when he saw Ariana put on his robe. "What are you doing?" he asked in a panicked tone. Ariana smiled at him and retorted sarcastically, "What do you think?" She quickly put on her mask before him because she needed to copy Dawson's expressions precisely. She was more careful than ever. She deliberately agitated Dawson so that she could accurately mimic how he looked when he was shocked, pleased, or in pain. Meanwhile, Dawson went through hell. He thought he would have a nervous breakdown. The girl made him feel like he was in heaven one moment and hell the next, and the emotional roller coaster almost drove him insane. While Dawson was in agony, Ariana suddenly turned away from him. When she turned back to face him, she looked exactly like him. Then she stared at him and asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" Dawson was shocked. Ariana sounded exactly like him. "Holy crap!" he said in shock. He felt like he was looking in a mirror. He burst into tears, fearing the worst. Ariana patted him on the head, grinned, and said, "Be a good boy and stay here. I'll set you free when I finish my task." Dawson asked, "Do you promise you'll set me free?" Ariana nodded and replied, "Of course." He was curious about why a stranger was interested in imitating him, so he asked, "What do you want?" Ariana was amazed at how slow the boy was and retorted, "Haven't you already guessed?" He was confused for a moment before terror filled his eyes as he finally realized what Ariana wanted. He said, "Don't tell me." She nodded and smiled. "No, that's impossible," he said as he shook his head repeatedly. "My master's guarding the fruit. You can't steal it. You're dreaming if you think you can steal the fruit with him there." Ariana chuckled and snapped, "It belongs to the person who can take it." Dawson wanted to argue with Ariana, but she was running out of time and didn't want to waste any on the delusional boy. So she ordered, "Don't get so excited. Go to sleep now, and everything will be over when you wake up." Dawson tried to retort, but she waved her hand and the teenager fainted. Ariana hid Dawson in a nearby cave concealed behind tall grass. She cleared her throat, straightened her clothes, and headed for the cottage. Dawson was about the same age as Ariana's brother, and since she had lived with Henry practically all his life, she knew exactly how to mimic a boy of that age. She planned to enter the cottage first to analyze the situation inside. Once she had built up her confidence, she would go see Mr. Paganis. Mr. Paganis was too observant and sharp. He might catch her tiniest mistake, so Ariana stuck to the other end of the yard to avoid him. However, her plan didn't seem to work as she had intended. Before taking one more step toward the yard, she heard a voice from behind her. It was Mr. Paganis. He cleared his throat while his gaze was still on the book. She knew she couldn't pretend she hadn't heard him. In that split second, she contemplated the best course of action. However, she took too long to decide, and Master Apollo found it rather strange. She looked in Ariana's direction and said, "Your master is summoning you." Ariana panicked a little, and she knew she couldn't ignore him. Luckily, the more complicated the situation was, the calmer she became. She also remembered that she needed to behave like Dawson. According to what Dawson had told her, he was quite a naughty boy who often skipped school. His master often disciplined him for that. That day, Mr. Paganis had told him to memorize a text, but Dawson had said he was going out for fresh air. Dawson swore to himself that he would never do such a thing again. He didn't know if he would get a second chance. Ariana stopped when she was a few yards away from Mr. Paganis, and her slim shoulders trembled a little. She glanced at him, but quickly lowered her head, fearing that he might see through her cover. Ariana's imitation was so precise that Mr. Paganis didn't realize she wasn't his student. He kept his gaze on the book while he spoke to the person he believed was Dawson. "Where were you?" he asked. He didn't sound angry, but his tone was still intimidating. Ariana cringed and replied nervously, I got tired when I was memorizing the text, so I went for a walk." It wasn't the first time that a student had snuck off. Mr. Paganis wouldn't cut his students so much slack if Dawson didn't come from a special background. Mr. Paganis finally put down the book, stared at his young student, and asked, "Did you get tired?" Ariana had been watching the immortal spirit fruit above his head the whole time. It was so tempting. She wished she could just grab it and run. However, she realized she could never pull off such a bold move, so she took a deep breath and fought back the urge. Just as she was about to look away from the tree, she noticed another fruit on the tree. Ariana's eyes lit up at that discovery. She was thrilled. It was as though all her prayers were answered. Warwick needed the immortal spirit fruit to turn on his bloodline, as did B. Radcliffe. It was the hardest choice to make. But at that moment, she realized she may not have to choose between them after all. If I only could take both immortal spirit fruits, Ariana thought. Then I wouldn't have to choose between Prince Warwick and B. Radcliffe. I could save them both. But I should have known it wouldn't be as simple as that. She frowned as she peered more closely at the fruit. Only one of them is ripe. Even though it's partially hidden in leaves, I can tell the other one will need a couple more weeks on the tree. Ariana continued studying the tree and its treasured fruit, racking her brain for a solution. Because she was disguised as Dawson Connolly, what Mr. Paganis saw, however, was his lazy student's attention wandering yet again. He put his book down and fixed his student with a steely glare. Ariana felt the force of the energy focused on her before she saw its source, and it took her breath away. His reputation is well earned, she thought. I don't know what he's like at facts and figures, but he certainly has what it takes to train Night Owl in the ways of manifestation. Mr. Paganis looked at the person he assumed was his student in disappointment and shook his head. Had it not been for the boy's background, he would have sent him packing. Recite the path to manifestation for me, he instructed, keeping a close watch for signs of discomfort, which would certainly betray the expected lack of application in memorizing the text. The path to manifestation, did you say? Ariana queried, returning his look. Mr. Paganis didn't respond, but simply picked up his book and resumed reading it. Now what? Ariana thought. She looked around. In the distance, she could see a small group of people, including a woman she assumed was Master Apollo Inti. As a supreme-level medicine refiner, she must have been there in readiness to pick and preserve the immortal spirit fruit. The group did indeed include Master Inti, a steward, and also General Gooch, who was on Mr. Paganis' staff and was in charge of the still-sleeping Lord Utley. Their attention was drawn toward Mr. Paganis when they heard the master testing his student. Here we go, said Master Apollo Inti. Dawson's done for. Hasn't he memorized the text? Asked General Gooch. I doubt he even tried, she said. I found him watching some ants in the grass. Oh dear, even Mr. Paganis' patience must have its limits. Indeed. I suspect that boy will be sent on his way soon. The general and the doctor exchanged a wry smile. Looking at every inch of the keen student, with her hands behind her back, Ariana started reciting the text. As an avid reader, the path to manifestation was a piece she had committed to memory. She hesitated when she observed Mr. Paganis' expression as she recited the lines, and she quickly recalled Dawson Connolly's mannerisms and personality. Ariana sighed as if with the effort of remembering the text and went on with the recitation. Mr. Paganis closed his eyes, listening with growing ease. Keeping their distance, Master Apollo Inti, General Gooch and the steward were gripped. Only the day before, that boy had only been able to haltingly recall the first 3 chapters, and Mr. Paganis had thrown the book in his face. But there he was, blithely reciting the path to manifestation. Ariana reached the end of the text without making a mistake, studying the master's expression, which seemed to have stiffened as if he were fighting to suppress his instinctive reaction. His eyes were still shut, and she worried that she may have misjudged the situation and given herself away.
Did I get carried away?
She wondered.
Dawson didn't seem like the brightest. Maybe I should have stopped before the end and fluffed it up a bit.
Looking over at the group of onlookers, she saw the astonishment on Master Inti's face and became nervous.
She knows,
Ariana thought.
I knew it. I recited it too well. And if she knows something's amiss, then Mr. Paganis will smell a rat.
Master? Ariana faltered, as she hoped Dawson would, looking for the approval of his teacher. Mr. Paganis finally opened his eyes. Outwardly unperturbed, the product of years of training, his students' pitch-perfect performance of the full 5,000 words had him flummoxed. Now I understand why he said he needed to take a walk, he thought. Memorizing so many words must have given him a headache. As he regarded his student, his expression softened. Come here, he said. With his white robe, which was long enough to brush the ground and glow in the moonlight, he looked almost celestial. Together with the energy she had felt emanating from him when he looked at her, and the sharpness of those eyes, Ariana feared that, as she moved closer, he would see through her disguise.
I have to embody Dawson,
she told herself.
If I don't, then it'll be curtains for me.
Ariana was scared, caught between wanting to act as Dawson would and not wanting to get close enough for him to see through her disguise. But she tries to move forward as Mr. Paganis called her. Come here, Mr. Paganis repeated. As she got within arm's length, the teacher reached out. She feared that he was about to wipe off the disguise paste covering her face, but instead, he ruffled her hair affectionately. Not bad, he said. Ariana was speechless.
What's happening?
She thought.
Dawson told me his master's always strict with him. Never says anything nice to me, he said. Only ever tells me off or gives me more homework. So what's all this?
Seeing the look of surprise on his student's face, Mr. Paganis felt a pang of guilt. He had barely softened his tone, yet this was the effect. How badly must he have treated the boy in the past? Resolving to be kinder to Dawson in the future, the tutor waved him away. Off you go. Enjoy a night off.
A night off?
Ariana was astonished.
That little liar told me his master never gave him any free time. He's going to regret messing with me.
Relieved to get away from Mr. Paganis for a while, she ran toward the cottages. Mr. Paganis occupied 3 in the middle of the group, with Master Inti and General Gooch using those on either side. To avoid enraging the Peacock King, to whom the area belonged, everyone else slept in the surrounding trees. Master Inti caught hold of Ariana and pulled her into a cottage and out of view. Dawson, that was amazing, she said, eyes wide as she looked at the person she thought was the hapless student. How did you memorize all that? She questioned. Ariana remembered how conceited the boy had been, Mimicking him, she raised an eyebrow and looked straight at Master Inti. "What's so difficult about it? It's just words," she declared. "You couldn't do it before, though," she added. "You have no idea how hard I worked," Ariana said. "I didn't know I had it in me."
I can't let my guard down even here, she thought. Mr. Paganis could probably still hear me if he wanted to.
"Master Inti, the ingredients are ready," came a voice from behind them. Looking toward the newcomer, Ariana was surprised to see Yolanda Gataki, one of the students she had fought in the arena and whom she had spared in her haste to save Prince Warwick. No longer wearing her leather combat dress, Yolanda's combination of childlike face and womanly curves nevertheless made her instantly recognizable.
What is she doing here?
Ariana wondered. However, she was brought sharply out of her musings by an admonishing clip from Master Inti. "Stop staring! Honestly, teenage boys."
That was lucky,
Ariana thought, nursing her stinging ear.
I suppose most teenage boys must stare at her like that. So shallow.
"I'm so sorry about him." Master Inti apologized to Yolanda. "Anyway, what's this I hear about you having fought that Ariana Grace?" At the mention of her name, Ariana's stomach lurched.
Don't send me away now, she thought. I need to hear this.
Master Inti and Yolanda walked away as they talked, and Ariana, disguised as Mr. Paganis' student Dawson, followed them. "Yeah, I was up against Ariana in the arena," Yolanda said. The doctor sat down and gestured for Yolanda to sit beside her. "And is it true what they say? Is she very pretty?" Ariana couldn't help but look between the two, curious to learn their opinion of her. Her mother was, by common consent, the most beautiful woman in the Mystic Kingdom, and her beauty had been commented upon many times. So even though she was far from vain, it came as something of a jolt to see her former opponent's nose wrinkle. "Pretty? I didn't think so," Yolanda said. Master Inti's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Honestly, she's nothing special." Detecting that the doctor felt threatened by another's beauty and keen to work for her, Yolanda added, "She's nowhere near as pretty as you." "You flatter me." Master Inti fluttered her eyelids. "I know I'm only the prettiest person in the Blue Sky Kingdom." "I also heard she's a very capable fighter," she added. "Is she?" Somewhat taken aback by the vanity of her prospective employer, Yolanda was relieved by the change of subject. "Who told you that?" she asked. "It's such an overstatement." Master Inti's eyes gleamed, but she feigned surprise. "So that's not true either?" "Of course not. She's only a level 2 spiritual king." "That's nearly the truth," Yolanda told herself. "She was still at that level when she fought against me." "I heard she won battles in the Junior Spiritual King arena," the doctor pressed. "Well," she struggled to find a plausible explanation. "That's because all of our best people were here, guarding the immortal spirit fruit." Again, she thought, not entirely a lie. We have had people here guarding the tree for a while. That's why Night Owl was so bold in taking on Prince Warwick. She wasn't about to admit that Ariana had not only defeated her and the rest of her team in the Junior Spiritual King arena, but she had decapitated Nozel Silva at the height of his powers. And she needed to avenge Nozel's death, not least because it was at her insistence that he had refrained from his breakthrough to the next Spiritual King level to compete. Fearing that Master Inti wouldn't believe her, Yolanda hastily added, "Lord Utley has the best level 3 and level 4 spiritual kings in our kingdom. Any one of them could kick Ariana's ass." Hearing Yolanda's distorted version of events and outrageous claims, it was all Ariana could do to maintain her appearance as the student Dawson Connolly.
If you only knew,
She thought.
those assassins of Lord Utley, of whom you seem so proud, were swallowed up by the sacred imperial spider. I don't think they'll be kicking anyone's ass, let alone mine.
The only thing Ariana is good at is bragging about herself. Yolanda sneered and was gratified to see that Master Inti shared her delight in trashing the girl's reputation. "There's something else I need to ask you. Prince Warwick de Cheville." The doctor's tone softened when she spoke his name, and she seemed hesitant to give voice to her question. "Is he in love with Ariana?" Yolanda jumped to her feet and faced her, eyes blazing. "Impossible! Who told you that? It's a malicious lie." Master Inti strained away from her, shocked by the vehemence of her reaction. "Is that not the case?" she asked. "Of course not. If you had any idea what Ariana's like, you wouldn't even suggest a thing." Ariana watched Yolanda with growing curiosity. "Oh, but she would love it to be true," she continued. "Ariana would die for the crown prince. That's how much she loves him."
No way! I do not!
Ariana managed to keep her outburst unvoiced, but she had nevertheless jerked upright at the suggestion and feared that she had "no" written all over her face. She looked anxiously between the two women, but was grateful, for once, for the power of gossip to overtake anything else in the room. Recovering her composure and inhabiting the character of Dawson, she feigned a concerned tone. "Does she? That's a bit over the top, isn't it?" she said. Yolanda barely registered the comment. "If the crown prince is in love with Ariana," she declared, "I'll chop my head off." "Great!" Ariana blurted out. Suddenly, her stomach lurched.
I said that out loud,
And she panicked.
Did they notice? And why on earth did I say that? It makes me sound like I know that he's in love with me. He isn't. Is he?
Embarrassed by both the fact and the nature of her outburst, Ariana wanted to bury her head in her hands. It was only for fear of smudging the disguise paste that she held back and hoped for the best. "What's it got to do with you? This is no place for kids. Get lost," snapped Yolanda. Ariana was grateful to get away with only being pushed out of the room. She looked back at Yolanda and Master Inti and pondered how often she had seen friendships formed from the discovery of a common enemy. Deciding that she had learned all that was useful to her from their conversation, she decided to leave them to it. After all, she had far more important business. Standing by the open door, she turned her attention back to the tree. Ariana eyed the two immortal spirit fruits on the tree, and a smile spread across her face. Perfect, she thought. I can use one for Prince Warwick and keep the other one for B. She had stolen one such fruit from the Crown Prince to restore her ability to cultivate after Madeline had taken that from her, but it had left the prince's beloved cousin in a coma.
Wait, what am I thinking?
Her face clouded as she remembered what she had noticed earlier.
One of them looks ripe, but the other one's going to need another couple of weeks. There's got to be a way, she thought. Could I take the first one, wait here for 2 weeks, and then take the other? Probably not. and I need to get the first one to Warwick as soon as possible. Could I take the whole tree?
She wondered, somewhat desperately.
Is that doable?
She inched toward the tree until she was right next to it. Seeing the extent of its roots, her hopes faded.
I suppose that was a long shot, she thought. But I can't have been the only one to consider it as an option. Someone set up a formation around the tree to protect it, and it's a formidable one at that. Level 9, if I'm not mistaken. Who could have done that?
Ariana was puzzled as she examined the formation.
Even Master Turnberry at Sphinx Academy is only a level 8 formation master. Well, that's that then, she thought ruefully. It's way beyond me to undo that formation. There must be another way.
What are you looking at? A voice said from behind her. Ariana jumped. She had assumed that Mr. Paganis was asleep in his chair, but he had been following her every move, still thinking she was his student, Dawson Connolly.
How much did he see? She worried. Did he see me examining the fruit and the tree?
Come over here, he intoned. She cringed as she hesitantly moved to stand by the teacher. If it's formations you're interested in, he said, motioning toward the tree, you need to put your heart and soul into learning them. How have you gotten on with the level 3 manual I gave you to memorize? Mr. Paganis was the only level 9 formation master in the Blue Sky Kingdom, and with such a lazy student, it was likely to stay that way for some time to come. Go and memorize that book, he commanded, and don't come out until you've done so. Ariana raised an eyebrow.
So, Mr. Paganis must be the level 9 formation master who set up the formation around the tree. His reputation is well deserved then.
She was startled by a sudden movement and looked around to see that Mr. Paganis was holding something in one outstretched hand. It was the immortal spirit fruit.
No!
She cried inwardly.
That's mine!
Flustered, she checked the tree to make sure the other fruit was still there.
Now what can I do? She wondered. I can't let him have that one. He'll use it to restore Night Owl's power. And then, even if I can get the other, it won't be in time to save Prince Warwick and our fortress.
Ariana took some deep breaths to steady her heartbeat, for fear that Mr. Paganis would sense her anxiety. But she need not have worried. Behind his calm exterior, the tutor was jumping for joy. Immortal spirit fruit in hand, Mr. Paganis headed for Master Apollo Inti's cottage, with Ariana, still disguised as his student, in hot pursuit. Think, she told herself, racking her brain for a way to retrieve the fruit.
Why couldn't it have fallen into my hands instead of his?
In desperation, she looked back at the tree. The other fruit hanging there would need at least a half month to ripen, and the whole tree was protected by a level 9 formation.
I could try to solve the formation, she mused. But no, Mr. Paganis will be watching my every move. If only I had disguised myself as someone he could trust, rather than a lazy student like Dawson. No, she decided. That unripe fruit will have to wait. This one is more important. If only because I have to stop him from using it for their crown prince.
Mr. Paganis was greeted at the cottage by Master Inti and Yolanda Gataki. Master Inti's eyes lit up at the sight of the fruit.
Is it ripe?
She asked. This one is, yes, he said, passing it to her. Refine it now. His Royal Highness is waiting. Master Inti cradled the fruit in both hands. "Of course," she replied excitedly. "We're so close," squealed Yolanda. "Once Night Owl takes the medicine, that other crown prince will." Mr. Paganis stopped her with an icy glare. "Go," he told Master Inti. "There's no time to waste." Eagerly, she hurried to the refinement room with her precious ingredient. There was no need to stoke a fire. The room had been positioned to make use of heat from a volcano, so she could get to work straight away. Ariana watched in despair as the door closed ahead of her, and Mr. Paganis set up a formation outside the room. It may not have been as advanced as the one he had set up to protect the tree, but the series of inscriptions he added to the level 8 formation would serve to strengthen its effect. "Now what can I do?" she asked herself. "Why are you still here?" The sharp inquiry from Mr. Paganis caught Ariana off guard. "I thought I told you to memorize the level 3 manual. Go in there." He pointed to the room next door. "And don't come out until you're finished." "But, Master," she tried to protest, but he wouldn't listen. "Memorize this as well while you're at it." He stuffed another book into her hands and stood guard at the entrance to the cottage. Ariana ran inside the room and closed the door. She paced up and down, her mind racing. The immortal spirit fruit wasn't that hard to refine. With Master Inti's skills, it would take her about 2 hours to finish the job. And then what will Mr. Paganis do? She wondered. If I were him, I would send the medicine back tonight. Night Owl is, after all, in urgent need of it, and I would need to take it myself, just to make sure. So that gives me 2 hours at most. If I'm going to get a hold of that fruit, I have to do it now. She took a deep breath to steady her nerves. Whatever the cost, I can't afford to let their crown prince recover his strength before our crown prince does. Otherwise, he'll attack the fortress, and... Her stomach lurched at the very prospect. Okay, she thought, forcing herself to think methodically. What am I working with here? A level 8 formation. I can certainly deal with that. And reinforced with inscriptions. Well, she took out her phoenix pen. I've got those covered too. Now, all I have to do is get out of here and to the refinement room without alerting Mr. Paganis. She looked out of the window and saw Mr. Paganis still stationed outside the front door, looking at the horizon. I can't go out that way. How else? She wondered. Looking around, her gaze landed on the wall. Recalling the layout of the building, she formed a plan. The refinement room is on the other side of that wall. This is my chance, she thought. Crouching by the wall and moving slowly so as not to draw attention, she began working on the formation surrounding the refinement room. When she had opened a crack in the formation, she erased the inscriptions with the phoenix pen. Stealing a glance out the window, she saw that Mr. Paganis was still standing with his back to her. Even the wisest of people can make a mistake, she mused. Maybe disguising myself as a useless student was a good move after all. He doesn't think there's any risk posed here. Returning to the wall, she quietly and patiently dug until she had created a tunnel under it, just wide enough for her to pass through. With no more time to lose, she emerged behind Master Inti. Master Inti was muttering to herself. I'll show that Ariana grace. She may have a high opinion of her own beauty and fighting ability, but this is where I shine, as a supreme level medicine refiner. Ariana rolled her eyes.
Oh, not another one. I had all this from Dr. Harper,
she thought. She was startled by a dramatic sigh from the doctor. If Night Owl uses this medicine, then what about Prince Warwick? I feel sorry for him. I might even like him more than our crown prince. Ariana listened in amazement.
What? Surely not. And shouldn't she be concentrating on her work rather than daydreaming? If she's not careful, then...
Flames leaped from the cauldron, which Master Inti had neglected, scorching her dress and singeing her hair. Beneath a layer of soot, the doctor's face paled.
I knew it! Ariana fumed. And now she's just standing there looking helpless. This is such a waste. There's nothing else for it.
Acting quickly and sparing none of her power as a level 3 spiritual king, she struck the woman on the back of her neck, knocking her out cold before turning her attention to the cauldron. Ariana was reaching for the half-finished potion when she heard Mr. Paganis' voice outside. "Master Inti," he called.
He must have heard the noise when she dropped to the floor,
Ariana thought. She rapidly considered her options. "Yes, sir," she replied, doing her best to mimic the older woman. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Yes, nothing to worry about," she answered. "Okay," he said. Waiting for a moment to make sure he was satisfied with that assurance, Ariana resolved to be more vigilant. Carefully examining the state of the potion in the cauldron, she realized she had no choice but to finish the refinement there and then. Despite her boast, Master Inti's skills were inferior to Ariana's. With the added benefit of fire from the volcano, Ariana refined the potion until it was golden and fragrant. Hearing footsteps approaching from the room outside, Ariana realized that Mr. Paganis must have smelled the potion and come to collect it.
Is he even skipping?
She thought, amused by the sound despite the situation. She could all too easily guess what he was thinking. Given the potion, Night Owl would recover first. With his power restored, the Blue Sky Kingdom could destroy the Mystic Kingdom's fortress and Shepherd's Village. After that, they could invade the entire kingdom.
Well, she resolved, not on my watch.
Decanting the golden potion, she substituted one she had prepared from the discarded skin of the immortal spirit fruit. It had taken the same green hue as would be expected from the potion Master Inti had been tasked to make, but without the same effect. Securing the golden potion in her storage space, she hurried back through the tunnel. Kicking over the last traces of the tunnel, Ariana congratulated herself on a job well done. Even if Mr. Paganis noticed something amiss, he would never suspect Dawson Connolly of any involvement. Disguised as that hapless student, Ariana could escape any blame for what had happened in the refinement room. But how could she slip away now without blowing her cover? Dawson had turned out to be a useful disguise. It would be a shame not to be able to use it again. Mr. Paganis was still hopping excitedly outside the refinement room when General Gooch joined him. "Is it ready? Should we check on her?" the general asked. Mr. Paganis nodded, and General Gooch knocked on the door. Ariana's blow had knocked Master Inti out cold. She came round to the increasingly desperate knocking, then hammering at the door. Nursing the back of her neck, she slowly opened her eyes and struggled to sit up. Struck by the recollection of what she had been doing, She got to her feet as quickly as her growing headache would allow. The immortal spirit fruit! She remembered. Something went wrong. What is it? Mr. Paganis will kill me because he needs the potion for Night Owl. Oh no! She cried. Her outburst startled General Gooch and Mr. Paganis outside the door. No longer prepared to wait, Mr. Paganis broke through the formation to enter the room. What happened? He demanded. With her clothes scorched, her face blackened with soot, and her hair and eyebrows singed, Master Inti made a sorry sight. But that was not Mr. Paganis' concern. He rushed to the cauldron. Peering inside, he was relieved to see a green potion. What happened? He asked. I heard you cry out, oh no. Not daring to look into the cauldron, Master Inti couldn't bring herself to tell him that she had failed. The task was supposed to have been easy for her. Just a couple of hours, she had told him. She was still formulating an apology when she saw him draw out some green potion from the cauldron. She was baffled. That certainly looked like the potion she had been trying to make. But how could it be? There had been an accident halfway through the refinement process, and she had no memory of what had happened after that. The room was sealed by a formation, and Mr. Paganis had been standing guard outside the cottage, so no one could have entered during the process. Master Inti reached what she considered to be the only possible conclusion. I must have made the potion in my sleep. I'm even more talented than I thought, she told herself. Mr. Paganis frowned and stared at Master Inti in confusion as he asked, What's wrong? He had a very keen sense of people's emotions and could pick up when someone was distressed by studying their spiritual essence. Master Inti had realized who had made the potion, but she knew she had to take responsibility and say she made it, regardless of what had happened. She met Mr. Paganis' gaze and said in a low tone, I ran into some problems during the refinement, but it was nothing serious. Look, here's the potion. She struggled to get up, picked up a bottle containing a greenish liquid from the table, and handed it to Mr. Paganis. Mr. Paganis still felt something was off and kept his gaze on Master Inti. She smiled nervously and continued, Mr. Paganis, have you forgotten you set up a formation around this room? No one except you has been in here. I've been here by myself this whole time. Everything is perfectly fine. Only then did Mr. Paganis take the potion. Ariana had been eavesdropping on the conversation. She figured that when he left, Mr. Paganis would probably head straight for the home of the Blue Sky Kingdom's ruling family, known as the Sun Fortress, to give the potion to Night Owl. She was very pleased as she saw an opportunity to escape with the real potion without having to fight Mr. Paganis. However, the world didn't revolve around her, and plans didn't always go the way she intended them to. Mr. Paganis didn't head for the Sun Fortress right away. Instead, he headed for Dawson's room, where Ariana was hiding. He knocked on the door when he arrived. She was confused and wondered, why is he here? She had no choice but to open the door. Yes, Master. Is there anything you need? She asked as she mimicked Dawson's mannerisms. She couldn't tell anything from Mr. Paganis' expression. He seemed unperturbed as always. He only glanced at her and said, Ask the Peacock King to come here. The Peacock King? Ariana repeated in a low tone as she narrowed her eyes.
Why does he need the Peacock King here?
She wondered. Why do I have to do it? Why can't it be General Gooch? Ariana said. General Gooch chuckled and retorted. Only you can do the job because the Peacock King doesn't talk to anybody else. Mr. Paganis nodded in agreement. Ariana was amazed. She hadn't expected an ordinary boy to be so useful.
Why didn't that little brat tell me about this?
She pondered. Mr. Paganis said, The Peacock King favors you, and you should be honored. However, tread carefully, or he'll kill you. Ariana replied, Yes, master. She left the cottage after that. She knew where the Peacock King was, but couldn't understand why Mr. Paganis wanted to talk to him when he already had the potion. Ariana was confused, but she knew one thing. She had to return the real potion to Warwick, as he was her utmost priority. The whole kingdom's future depended on his survival. She soon formed a plan. Instead of going to see the Peacock King as Mr. Paganis had instructed her to, she went to fetch Dawson first. She made her way to the cave where she had hidden the boy. She tapped him a few times when she arrived, and he slowly woke up. Dawson was initially confused, but as soon as he remembered what had happened, he jumped to his feet. However, he was still tied up, so he immediately fell to the ground. You! He exclaimed as he stared at Ariana in disgust. He remembered she had used the truth serum to force him to give her personal information. The last thing he could remember was her hitting him on the back of his head. Ariana smiled and handed him a piece of roasted chicken. There you go, she said. Dawson exclaimed proudly, I don't accept leftovers. Ariana clapped her hands and retorted, That's very honorable of you. So be it. You can stay here and starve to death. At the prospect of death, Dawson glared at Ariana. Are you sure you don't want it? Shall I gag you and leave you in the cave? She asked. He reluctantly snapped. How dare you? She chuckled and replied, I've already dared, haven't I? Dawson was from a highly respected family, and his master was the famous Mr. Paganis. However, there was nothing he could do about Ariana's threat. His stomach rumbled as he stared at the roasted chicken and contemplated giving in. He had been left there for so long without water or food. Before Ariana could say anything, he snatched the chicken from her hands and wolfed it down. Ariana watched him with a smile because the boy had fallen for her trap without even realizing it. What a gullible little boy, she thought. After finishing the chicken, Dawson asked, Why are you being so nice to me all of a sudden? Ariana grinned. Dawson's eyes widened. His mind wondered about all the possible worst-case scenarios of Ariana's sudden attitude change. He glared at her and asked in shock, You didn't put poison in that chicken, did you? Ariana smiled and let out a villainous giggle. Dawson attempted to throw up, but Ariana patted his stomach and assured him, Don't worry, I didn't poison you. He stared at her, still unconvinced, and insisted. Really? Yep, she replied. However, Dawson saw her as a devilish person and didn't believe a word she said, so he continued to attempt to throw up frantically. She ordered, Your master told you to fetch the Peacock King. You should get going now. She then handed him the robe she had taken from him and untied him. Dawson ground his teeth and hesitated. He contemplated escaping and yelling for help, but restrained himself because he knew he was no match for Ariana. Somehow, he felt the pretty girl would kill him if he made the slightest mistake. Ariana stood up, waved at him, and said,
"See you next time, baby boy."
She soon walked out of his sight.
"Baby boy,"
Dawson repeated in a disgusted tone. He wondered, what did she mean by "see you next time"? The poor boy didn't understand what Ariana meant. If he had, he would have burst into tears and cursed the day he met her. Dawson was utterly confused. He felt he had to tell his master everything the evil girl had done to him so they could punish her. At that thought, he cleaned himself up and returned to the cottage.
"Master! Master!"
he yelled as he got closer to the cottage. Master Inti was kneeling at Mr. Paganis's feet when Dawson arrived. Mr. Paganis turned his cold gaze on the boy and asked in an intimidating yet calm tone, "Where's the Peacock King?" Dawson was confused and wondered, "What Peacock King?" He then recalled what Ariana had said about a peacock earlier. However, that wasn't as important to him as what he had to report. "The Peacock King can wait," he reasoned. "The most important thing now is arresting that evil girl." Before Dawson could say anything, Yolanda, who was also kneeling on the ground, said,
"Mr. Paganis, I think Master Inti did something to the potion."
Dawson frowned, as he didn't understand what Yolanda was talking about. Moreover, he felt the news he had to report was more urgent. Mr. Paganis glanced at Yolanda and raised an eyebrow, encouraging her to continue. Yolanda continued,
"Master Inti is in love with our enemy's crown prince."
Mr. Paganis stared at Master Inti as his eyes widened. She retorted immediately, "I'm not! Yolanda, how can you say that?" Dawson was dumbfounded because he still couldn't understand what was happening. He turned to General Gooch for help, and the general whispered, "The potion Master Inti made went bad almost immediately after it was refined. We speculate that she cut down on the materials and made another potion for herself. That's not all. She even poisoned our crown prince's potion." Dawson clapped his hands over his mouth as he gasped in shock. He couldn't understand how so many events had unfolded in the short period he was kidnapped. He then recalled the smile Ariana had on her face before she left. "That girl is the devil," he thought as he shrugged. "I thought you went to invite the Peacock King here. Where is he?" General Gooch asked. Dawson didn't know what to say, so he stared at the general. General Gooch's face darkened, and he continued, "I know you've memorized on morals, but it's too early to be so arrogant." Dawson was dumbfounded, as he didn't know what the general was talking about. "Since when did I do that?" he pondered. He knew for a fact that he couldn't understand a word in that book. However, he figured that Ariana must have been the reason for all that, and the idea made him want to cry. "Not only did she impersonate me, but she also interacted with the people here. Master Inti is being accused of cutting down on the materials for the potion. Could it be that girl?" he wondered. At that moment, he felt compelled to tell the truth. However, he held his tongue when he reasoned. "That girl could fool someone as wise as my master. Not only that, but did she also take the real potion and frame Master Inti for it? Just how powerful is she? He felt there was no point in mentioning her, as he feared his master might not be Ariana's match. General Gooch frowned as Dawson was behaving weirdly, so he asked, "Dawson, is there something wrong?"
"Everything is a disaster,"
Dawson replied in his head, but he didn't dare say that out loud. He had so much he wanted to say, but the problem was that Ariana had done those things while pretending to be him. If they found out what had happened, he would most probably be dead. Dawson finally understood why the girl had given him food and set him free. Ariana had known he would keep her secret because exposing her would also mean exposing himself. Master Inti shot Yolanda a dirty look, and before long, they started bickering. They blamed each other for what had happened. Yolanda pointed at Master Inti and said accusingly, "You're in love with the enemy's crown prince. You told me so." Master Inti clapped her hands on her chest dramatically and exclaimed, "You're lying." Yolanda insisted, "If you're not in love with him, what happened to the potion? There's less of it than there should be, and the consistency is different now." Master Inti replied with teary eyes, "Fine, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not good enough at making potions. There, are you happy now?" Yolanda fell silent for a few minutes before asking, "What happened to the remaining juice?" Master Inti replied as she wiped the tears from her cheeks, "I wasn't careful enough and burned it during the refinement stage." Mr. Paganis kept his gaze on Master Inti the entire time, analyzing the tone of her voice and the rhythm of her heartbeat. He let Yolanda argue with the doctor without interfering, hoping to find some clues about what had happened. However, Master Inti didn't reveal anything, and Mr. Paganis knew she was telling the truth because during her argument with Yolanda, he noticed that her heartbeat remained steady, indicating she wasn't lying. Mr. Paganis then glanced at Dawson and asked, "Where's the Peacock King?" Dawson cringed at the mention of the Peacock King, as he'd forgotten all about it. Just as he was about to give a flimsy excuse for why the Peacock King wasn't there, they heard an eerie chuckle. They all turned spontaneously and saw the Peacock King standing in the doorway. Dawson couldn't believe it, and he felt he was close to getting the beating of his life from his master. "Why is he here? I never went to fetch him," he wondered. At that moment, Ariana's face popped into his head. Can it be her? He wondered. Dawson was so frightened by that thought that he froze. With the arrival of the Peacock King, the atmosphere became strange. Dawson believed his master was about as capable as the peacock because Mr. Paganis didn't stand up to greet the Beast King. "You wanted to see me?" the Peacock King said arrogantly. Mr. Paganis nodded and threw the potion bottle at him. Night Owl's tutor was good at many things, but medicine wasn't one of them, which was why he had let Master Inti make the potion. If he hadn't been such a meticulous person, he wouldn't have examined the concentration of the potion with his spiritual essence. But he did, and that was how he discovered something was wrong with it. He just wasn't entirely sure of his discovery. Being a magical beast, the Peacock King had an acute sense regarding medical potions, which was why Mr. Paganis had summoned him. The spiritual bird glanced at Yolanda and asked, "Is it for me?" Yolanda didn't respond, as she was intimidated by the sheer magnitude of the Peacock King's spiritual essence. So Mr. Paganis asked politely, Would you please examine it for me?" The Peacock King felt the bottle before unplugging its cork and smelling it. The bird then dipped its talon into the potion and gave it a little taste. Mr. Paganis fixed his eyes on the peacock's face as he wanted to pick up on the faintest change in the Beast King's countenance. The Peacock King, on the other hand, was preoccupied with thinking about the girl in the red dress. He had never seen such a bold human before. She had stood in front of him, stretched out her hand, and asked boldly, "Would you like to partner with me?" The Peacock King almost laughed at the audacity of that human. The girl was only a junior spiritual king, which was an ant in comparison to the Peacock King's rank. Why does she think she has a bargaining chip worth my attention? He had wondered as he contemplated killing her. However, when the bird glanced at the girl's hand, he had seen a pill there. It was a semi-divine golden crow pill. The Peacock King's eyes had lit up. Magical beasts fought and got injured constantly, and they needed to find herbs to heal their wounds afterward. However, that was only because they didn't have the skills to make advanced healing pills, which required the spiritual essence of humans. If herbs were so useful, human cultivators could eat them directly, and they wouldn't value medicine refiners so much. However, that was not the case, as medicine refiners could combine hundreds of herbs, making their medicine much more effective than individual herbs. Moreover, the pill Ariana had offered the peacock was no simple pill. It was one of the rarest pills ever made. The 7 Beast Kings fought constantly, and if one of them could get their hands on such a pill, it would be like having an extra life. Hence, the Peacock King put his arrogance aside and smiled at Ariana. "Aren't you afraid I'll snatch it from you?" the peacock had asked as he smiled villainously. To his surprise, the human girl had looked at him as though he was inferior to her. "If you do that, you won't have any more pills. So do you want it to be a one-off thing? Or would you like a constant stream of semi-divine pills?" Ariana had retorted confidently. The Peacock King had been amazed by her audacity, and he had wasted no time accepting her offer. After all, which Beast King didn't want more reasons to show off their power? The Peacock King suddenly realized Mr. Paganis was staring at him. He was well aware of the tutor's skill at reading the spiritual essence of people and beasts like cards, so the bird felt a little flustered. He stared back at Yolanda and asked, "Do you want it or not?" Mr. Paganis was curious about the bird's question and inquired, "Is it toxic?" The Peacock King replied, "No, it isn't." Mr. Paganis' eyes narrowed as he looked at the peacock suspiciously and insisted, "Are you sure?" At that moment, the magical peacock recalled what Ariana had told him to do should Mr. Paganis show any signs of doubt. Without hesitation, he poured the potion down his throat. Everybody was astonished. Mr. Paganis frowned a little, as the potion the bird had just drank was priceless. Of all the magical beasts, the Peacock King knew herbs the best. That was why there was an immortal spirit fruit tree in his territory. The Blue Sky Kingdom had to pay a small fortune to buy that tree from the Peacock King. The beast wasn't afraid of being poisoned, as Ariana had already given him the antidote. Moreover, he was thrilled that he had gotten the potion for nothing, and that he would get another semi-divine pill afterward as payment. "What a sweet deal," he reasoned, as he smiled ever so slightly. Ariana's prediction was right. Mr. Paganis was a paranoid man. Once he started questioning something, he wouldn't stop until he found an answer. Even Master Inti couldn't fool him, let alone Dawson. Therefore, the rest of the plan fell on the Peacock King, who had to tie up the loose ends. Dawson was relieved when the Peacock King drank the potion, as he felt it meant that the argument would end. However, he was gravely mistaken. Mr. Paganis glared at the Peacock King with eyes that shone with malicious intent. The Peacock King said indifferently, "You didn't believe me, so I had to prove it to you. What's wrong with that?" Mr. Paganis knew he could do nothing about the Peacock King's insolence. He glanced at the immortal spiritual tree and took solace in the fact that there was still another fruit there, which meant he had one more shot at saving Night Owl. At that moment, they heard hurried footsteps approaching them. "General Gooch! General Gooch!" Someone called out with a sense of urgency. The person sounded like he was about to cry. "Isn't that Lord Ulrich?" Dawson murmured as he turned to look at who it was. Mr. Paganis' student was right. It was indeed Lord Ulrich. He had been sleeping under a tree while his subordinates went out to hunt Ariana. The Lord couldn't understand why he had slept longer than usual. He found it very weird, and he had only decided to nap because he didn't need to personally go after Ariana. And the fact that he had a special team that consisted of 10 of the best junior spiritual king assassins in the Blue Sky Kingdom made him even more relaxed. General Gooch was the one who had assigned the elite assassin team to Lord Ulrich, so when he saw him without them, he asked impatiently, "Where is everybody?" Lord Ulrich was taken aback by that question, as he genuinely had no idea where the team members were, and he had hoped they had returned. He started to panic as he tried to search his memory to identify what had happened. He remembered that when he had woken up, it was nighttime, and he had immediately tried to contact team members through their badges to tell them to come back. But to his horror, no one had responded. Lord Ulrich's eyes had widened in terror as he had assumed the worst. "What's happening?" he had wondered. He had looked in the direction of the sacred Imperial Spider's territory and thought he had felt the cold gaze of the spider. Terrified, he had run toward the Peacock King's territory, having given up on finding the elite assassin team. He knew that he would be safe in the Peacock King's territory, since the people of Blue Sky Kingdom worshipped the magical bird. Lord Ulrich finally replied nervously, "They're all dead." Mr. Paganis and General Gooch looked at each other, and Mr. Paganis frowned and asked, "Who's dead?" "All the members of the team I was assigned are dead," Lord Ulrich replied. General Gooch's pupils contracted. Even Mr. Paganis couldn't believe his ears, as the team members assigned to Lord Ulrich were some of the most elite cultivators in the Blue Sky Kingdom. "You idiot! You're an incapable fool! How could you let that happen?" Mr. Paganis asked as he fumed with anger. He was right to be angry, as he had just lost the potion and his finest assassins in just one day. Mr. Paganis knew he would kill Lord Ulrich immediately if he didn't calm his nerves, so he took a deep breath and slowly said, "Tell me what happened." Lord Ulrich was about to speak when Mr. Paganis smirked and added in his most intimidating voice, "If you keep anything from me, you won't leave here alive." It had crossed Lord Ulrich's mind to lie about what had happened, but Mr. Paganis' threat made him reconsider. His teeth chattered when he spoke again. "There was a girl in a red dress. It had to be Ariana," Lord Ulrich explained. He described how he and the elite assassin team had met Ariana in the woods. "I saw them follow her into the woods before I took my nap," he finally added nervously. "A nap?" Mr. Paganis repeated in a serious tone. Lord Ulrich was scared out of his wits, and he replied, "Yes, sir. Please, forgive me." Mr. Paganis asked, "Are you referring to Ariana Grace, the girl with divine phoenix blood?" Lord Ulrich nodded. "Yes, it was her." Mr. Paganis continued, "Did the elite assassins disappear in the spider's territory?" "Yes, they did," Lord Ulrich answered. Mr. Paganis fell silent for a second before calmly saying, "That'll be all." Lord Ulrich was surprised and wondered, "Is Mr. Paganis letting me off so easily?" He smiled and exhaled a sigh of relief at that thought. He attempted to thank Mr. Paganis for his generosity, but before he could say anything, he felt a sharp pain and collapsed. Mr. Paganis had decapitated the man with a wave of his sleeve. Lord Ulrich hadn't seen it coming, so he hadn't even made a sound. He had barely felt any pain before he died. The last thought on his mind had been how generous Mr. Paganis was. It wasn't anything new for Mr. Paganis to kill people with a smile, as he was always known to be a fan of that. However, Lord Ulrich's case was rather unexpected. Mr. Paganis stood up and walked away from the group. "Master, where are you going?" Dawson asked as he ran after him. Instead of answering the question, Mr. Paganis said to the Peacock King, "Since you don't have anything else to do, how about another deal?" The Peacock King smiled and replied, "I'm listening." Mr. Paganis stopped and turned to face the peacock. "Do my kingdom a favor, and I'll give you 3 supreme-level Golden Crow pills," Mr. Paganis added. Despite losing some of his finest assassins, the tutor didn't seem bothered about them anymore. He reasoned, "We'll have no useful junior spiritual king assassins for a while. What a shame." The Peacock King saw Mr. Paganis' offer as a way to get more bang for his buck, so he replied, "Make it 5 pills, and I'll agree." Mr. Paganis frowned as he was a little annoyed at the peacock's greediness. However, he desperately needed the bird's help, so he nodded and said, "All right." He and the Peacock King headed for the sacred Imperial Spider's territory. Dawson, Master Inti, Yolanda, and General Gooch were very curious about Mr. Paganis' plan, so they followed him without saying a word. At that moment, Ariana was heading for the Mystic Kingdom's border. She had left right after she made her deal with the Peacock King. The journey was very dangerous, and she didn't trust the Peacock King to hold up his end of the bargain. She felt it was just a matter of time before he turned on her. "As soon as His Royal Highness drinks this potion, he'll regain his ability, and everything will be fine," Ariana reasoned as she picked up her pace. In the fortress, Master Holmes was shocked by the news Pete had brought him about Ariana's mission. "What? Ariana went to look for the immortal spirit fruit on her own?" Master Holmes repeated in shock. Pete replied, "Yes, she did." Master Holmes continued as he rubbed his forehead frantically. Has she forgotten that she's not powerful enough to survive in the central region on her own? I know she's talented. Her grades are proof of that. But it still can't change the fact that she has only been cultivating for a few years. The 7 Beast Kings can kill her without breaking a sweat, he said. Master Holmes was furious that Ariana had been so careless. He felt a cold gaze fixed on him, and when he turned to meet it, he met a pair of terrifying eyes, which didn't help with his anxiety. He gasped and said, Your Royal Highness, you're awake. Warwick was unconcerned about formalities, so he asked coldly, What were you talking about? Master Holmes started to break out in a sweat. He couldn't help but tell Warwick everything, as the Crown Prince's gaze was truly intimidating. Your Royal Highness, it's Ariana. She entered the Dayless Woods alone and went to the Central Region to find the immortal spirit fruit. Master Holmes explained. The Central Region? The immortal spirit fruit? Warwick repeated as he tried to wrap his head around what he had just heard. There was a murderous look in the Crown Prince's eyes. Master Holmes noticed the intimidating look in Warwick's eyes, but he knew that he had to finish telling the Crown Prince everything for his safety. So he continued, almost in tears. We've just received news that the fruit is indeed in the Central Region. It's in the Peacock King's territory, but the Blue Sky Kingdom learned that fact earlier than we did and sent Mr. Paganis to guard the tree. Pete gave Warwick an anxious look. He hadn't expected to see the Crown Prince awake so soon, much less walking. Pete knew they were in trouble just from the expression on Warwick's face. The Crown Prince turned around, supporting himself on the doorframe. Pete panicked and went after the Crown Prince, as he knew where Warwick was headed. Master Holmes was perplexed and asked, What's wrong? Where are you going? Pete yelled, Gather our people. We're going to the Dayless Woods, the Peacock King's territory. It took Master Holmes a moment to understand what Pete meant. He finally realized the Crown Prince was going to rescue Ariana and reasoned. That girl is so lucky she's a semi-divine medicine refiner, which is a very important skill. Even if His Royal Highness didn't do anything, I would have found a way to get her back, as her skills are invaluable. However, despite his willingness to save Ariana, Master Holmes felt angry at her because she had made the Crown Prince worry in his injured state. It's all Ariana's fault, he thought as he clenched his hands into fists and looked on as Warwick struggled to walk. If anything happens to His Royal Highness, what will become of the Mystic Kingdom? I must stop the prince before he kills himself, dooming us all in the process. However, when Master Holmes blocked Warwick's way, the Crown Prince glared at him and said in his most royal tone, Holmes, you forget your place. Do you have a death wish? Master Holmes was speechless, as the sheer tone of Warwick's voice was so intimidating. The Crown Prince didn't need his spiritual energy to intimidate other people. Master Holmes had no choice but to get out of Warwick's way. The Crown Prince stumbled along the wall, took out a jade plate, and ordered, Toby, I don't care if you found that thing. Come back to me now. There was no warmth in his voice. Toby's calm voice came from the other end, and he replied, Your Royal Highness, I'll need 2 hours to get there. You have 2 hours. 1 minute late, and you can collect my body," Warwick replied. Even without his spiritual essence, and in that deplorable state, the Crown Prince was as handsome as ever. People followed him with admiration in their eyes. There were only 3 pieces of concealing jade ever made, and Ariana and Warwick each had one. The outsiders didn't know that the Crown Prince had lost his abilities. They only saw that he was a bit pale and figured he was a little unwell. If Warwick wanted to do something, no one could change his mind. The only person who could do that was in the Dayless Woods, probably about to be killed. Pete was worried sick, but couldn't do anything but stay by Warwick's side. Meanwhile, Master Holmes was exasperated because he had to gather his people's most skilled cultivators to ensure that the Crown Prince, who was the future of Mystic Kingdom, didn't die in the Dayless Woods. He knew he couldn't assign the 3 most capable cultivators to the Crown Prince because they were confronting the 3 leaders of the Blue Sky Kingdom and couldn't be distracted. Even though Warwick's life was more important, Master Holmes knew bringing back the elite cultivators at that time would blow their cover and possibly lead to another war with the Blue Sky Kingdom. Master Holmes and Master Harper were the highest-ranking officials below the 3 elite cultivators. They were both senior spiritual overlords, and below them were ordinary spiritual overlords like Master Madden. Master Holmes told Master Madden to inform the elders of the Sphinx Academy what was happening while he went to fetch Master Harper. When Master Holmes arrived at the military academy, he greeted Master Harper and informed her of what had happened in a panicked tone. She was taken aback by what Master Holmes said, but she agreed to avail herself to protect the Crown Prince and the future of the Mystic Kingdom. Next to her was Dakota, her favorite niece, who was also a supreme-level medicine refiner from the Shadowless sect. Master Holmes thought Master Harper would go with him immediately, but Master Harper and Dakota looked at each other before they said, "You go ahead. We'll be there in a minute." Master Holmes was surprised, but didn't have time to read much into their weird behavior. So he said, "Hurry up, we don't have time to waste." He then made his way to join the 10 elders waiting outside the entrance of the Dayless Woods. Immediately after Master Holmes left, Dakota rose to her feet and said as she tugged on Master Harper's sleeves, "Did you hear that?" Master Harper nodded, opened her wooden trunk, and started putting on her armor. However, her movements were exceptionally slow. Dakota was worried for her aunt and took her slowness as an opportunity to convince her not to go. She insisted, "Don't go!" Master Harper stared at her, but continued putting on the armor. "Ariana went into the Dayless Woods of her own accord. We didn't make her go. Why should we help her now? You have no idea how arrogant Ariana is. She never thought of me as her equal. If she's dead, I'll be the best medicine refiner in the fortress," Dakota said. Seeing that her aunt was still wearing the armored suit, Dakota grabbed the robe and added, "If Ariana's dead, no one will steal His Royal Highness from me." Her voice sounded as tiny as a mosquito's. Master Harper sighed and ordered, "Let's go." "But Aunt Harper," Dakota said teary-eyed. Master Harper asked, "How can you be so stupid?" Dakota seemed lost, as she didn't understand what her aunt meant. "What do you mean?" she asked. Master Harper explained, "When the Blue Sky Kingdom is involved, the 2 schools must join hands and fight our common enemy. No one can defy that rule. What you said makes sense. Ariana did bring this on herself, so we're not obligated to help her. However, we have to be present ourselves as dutiful citizens. Do you know what to do now? Master Harper asked as she gave Dakota a stern look. Dakota knew her aunt well, and she could simply deduce what her aunt meant with just one look. Her eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, "We have to go, but there's no need to hurry. We can take our time, right?" "You've finally come to your senses," Master Harper said as she smirked. Dakota flushed with excitement at the prospect of Ariana's death. Master Harper added, "His Royal Highness will owe us a favor if we do this, which will come in handy in the future." Dakota nodded obediently. Master Harper liked feeling respected and was pleased by Dakota's obedience, so she taught her a little more. If you want someone to be truly grateful to you, you must save them or the thing they care about most at a critical life or death moment, preferably on the verge of death, and they will remember it forever. Dakota's eyes widened, and she added in a thrilled tone, "Let's do that! We'll save His Royal Highness, and he'll owe us a favor." She flushed red at the prospect of what she would ask should the Crown Prince owe her a favor. Master Harper didn't stop her from giggling like a child because she enjoyed seeing her like that. Ariana was running as fast as her legs could carry her. She was so fast that her feet barely touched the ground. "I have to move faster," she thought, as she willed herself the motivation to continue running, even though she was tired. "Everything will be fine once Warwick drinks the potion," she reasoned. That thought motivated her to keep going. She couldn't avoid the sacred Imperial Spider's territory on her way back to the fortress, as that was the only way to get to the Mystic Kingdom. She got there in no time, and was going to find Jake and take him with her so that the spider didn't eat him. Even if the spider didn't eat him, Lord Ulrich might harm him later. Ariana had played a little trick on Lord Ulrich, and she believed he was still sleeping. Her stomach lurched when she saw that the branch he was sleeping on was empty. It seemed that day wasn't her luckiest. She had wanted to kill Lord Ulrich, but had felt it wouldn't have been an easy job. Moreover, she had been in a hurry. "More trouble," Ariana murmured as she rubbed her forehead. She rushed into the woods to find Jake still digging for badges in the pit. There was mud on his face, but his eyes were exceptionally bright. He was thrilled when he saw her. "You have no idea how many badges I've found!" he yelled as he smiled. Jake knew that at any moment, the sacred Imperial Spider might feel hungry again and decide to make a meal out of him. Despite that very real danger, he was reluctant to leave the fearsome arachnid's territory. He had found an astonishing number of enemy combatants' badges buried in a pit. He and Ariana would be able to use them to attain high military rankings. He was so pleased by that thought that he didn't immediately notice how anxious Ariana was. "Jake!" she exclaimed. "I ran into some trouble. We need to get going." She grabbed a heavy bag he had filled with badges and stowed it in her storage space. Jake handed her an enormous scarf, which he had wrapped around an additional pile of badges. Ariana didn't waste time counting them. She stowed them in her storage space too. He wiped the mud off his hands and face with a handkerchief. "Stop dawdling!" she hissed. And off she went with Jake running beside her as fast as his bare feet could carry him. Earlier in the day, Ariana had tricked him by freezing his feet to the ground. He had cut off his boots so he could chase after her. They sprinted silently through the forest. Suddenly, the sacred imperial spider stepped in front of their path and blocked their way forward. The cruel creature's cold eyes were a fearsome thing to behold. But Ariana couldn't waste any time dwelling on her fear. She gave the spider a courteous bow.
"Oh, esteemed arachnid," she said, "please allow my adoptive brother and me to go. We must hasten back to the fortress."
Ariana knew Mr. Paganis would come searching for her in a matter of minutes. He would realize the 50 assassins who had been tasked with finding her and delivering her and her coveted divine phoenix blood to him were all dead. The spider had eaten them. Ariana knew it was dangerous for her to linger and run the risk of encountering him. She also knew the spider wouldn't be in any real danger if pernicious Mr. Paganis showed up. Earlier in the day, Ariana had asked the Peacock King how he and the other beastly rulers had managed to survive in the Dayless Woods with warring forces from the Mystic Kingdom and the Blue Sky Kingdom hemming them in. The bird had told her the Beast Kings always set aside their quarrels with one another when human beings of any nationality threatened them. When the creatures fought together, they could vanquish even the most powerful human beings. The sacred imperial spider heaved a dramatic sigh. "Do you have to go?" she asked.
Ariana replied, "Yes, but I'll be back soon."
The spider hated vague answers. "Precisely when do you intend to return?" the creature asked haughtily. Ariana thought,
"Oh my God, we need to get out of here."
She willed herself to be patient.
"Oh, esteemed arachnid," she replied, "I'll be back in 10 days. In the meantime, you'll be safe thanks to your alliance with the other Beast Kings."
The sacred imperial spider heaved another dramatic sigh. Then the creature said, "Go if you must, but return without fail 10 days from now."
"I will," Ariana said. "I promise you."
She and Jake were about to head off, but Mr. Paganis stepped in front of their path and blocked their way forward. The Peacock King was with him. Ariana willed herself to be calm. She willed herself to be brave, and she willed herself to think clearly. The worst had happened. The man who intended to drain her divine phoenix blood from her body had found her. Ariana had a sudden vision of Warwick, lying alone and angry in his bed. The Crown Prince had lost his cultivation ability. To recover it, he needed to imbibe the golden potion she had made.
"My prince," she thought, "I won't let this enemy leader stop me from delivering the potion to you."
Fortunately, she didn't realize Warwick was preparing to come to the Dayless Woods to rescue her, though his strength was dangerously depleted. If she had known, her heart would have been filled with unbearable distress. She willed her gaze to be serene. Then she gave Mr. Paganis the enigmatic half-smile her adversaries had seen on so many previous occasions. Jake was dismayed. The suave young aristocrat usually managed to conduct himself with aplomb, but his voice betrayed his utter anxiety when he exclaimed, "Why, Mr. Paganis, what brings you here?" The sacred imperial spider was alarmed. She thought, "Why is the Peacock King acting like he's friends with Mr. Paganis?" Mr. Paganis was surprised. He thought, Why is the sacred imperial spider acting like she's friends with Ariana Grace? Of course, Mr. Paganis recognized Ariana immediately. He sometimes saw her face in his dreams and would have known her even if she weren't wearing her customary red dress. He had handed copies of her portrait to countless subordinates when he had put a price on her head. As he stared coldly at her, he noticed her exceptional beauty and her fiercely intelligent aura. He thought, her portrait doesn't do her justice. "Don't move a muscle, Ariana Grace," he said commandingly. She continued to regard him serenely and smile her enigmatic half-smile. "Here I stand, Mr. Paganis," she said calmly. Silence descended on the scene. Mr. Paganis was a ruthless man who wielded enormous power in the Blue Sky Kingdom. The superstar teacher served as Night Owl's academic tutor, fighting coach, and personal protector. Powerful cultivators of all ages were justifiably afraid of Mr. Paganis, and he knew it. Even Master Inti, who was an enormously self-confident person and a supreme-level medicine refiner, found it impossible to look him in the eye. Ariana had good reasons to fear him. He wanted to get his hands on her coveted divine phoenix blood so he can give it to his protege Night Owl, who had been severely injured in an epic fight with Warwick. Also, though Mr. Paganis didn't realize it, Ariana had a golden potion with her. She had made it from the immortal spirit fruit. Night Owl needed the medicine to help him recover from his injuries. Much to Mr. Paganis' surprise, Ariana remained calm and unruffled despite his cold stare. He felt a grudging admiration for her. The only other members of the younger generation who managed to keep their composure in his presence were Night Owl and Prince Warwick. Mr. Paganis studied her beautiful face for a moment longer and then felt a sudden stab of vexation. He thought, "I'm standing here staring at her like an admiring schoolboy. I need to get down to business." He turned his icy eyes toward the sacred imperial spider. "You there," he said rudely. "You ate 50 of my assassins. That was uncalled for." The spider replied primly, "Your rudeness is uncalled for. I didn't eat your underlings." He snorted derisively. "Of course you did," he replied. The arachnid asked angrily, "What evidence do you have to back up your unwarranted accusation?" Mr. Paganis said, "If you want me to provide evidence, I'll slice open your stomach and extract your victim's undigested remains. And I won't use an anesthetic." His aggressive threat upset the spider so much that she forgot her stomach couldn't possibly contain the 50 assassins' undigested remains. Their predigested tissues were sloshing around in her stomach. Before she had gobbled up the men, she had spit digestive enzymes on them and liquefied their bodies. That's what spiders always did to their prey. Once again, silence descended on the scene. The sacred imperial spider hated and feared Mr. Paganis. She knew he could order every last Blue Sky Kingdom combatant in the Peace Grassland to fight the Beast Kings if he chose to. Though junior spiritual kings didn't belong in the depths of the Dayless Woods, they would unquestioningly march right in if Mr. Paganis told them to. She knew the other Beast Kings would be fiercely annoyed with her if she caused a large-scale armed conflict of that sort. Once Mr. Paganis had given the sacred imperial spider a while to think about his threat, he said, "If you don't interfere in my dealings with Miss Grace, I won't seek retribution for your appalling gluttony." The sacred imperial spider was angry about the position Mr. Paganis had put her in. If he sent hordes of Blue Sky Kingdom fighters into battle against the Beast Kings, they would be upset with her. But the spider also wanted to show her loyalty to Ariana, who was the first friend the arachnid ever made. Friends should protect each other, the spider thought. The mention of Ariana's name galvanized Jake into action. He stepped in between his adoptive sister and Mr. Paganis. Siblings should protect each other, Jake thought. He wondered why Pete, who had gone back to the fortress earlier in the day, hadn't yet returned to the woods with an armed escort for him and Ariana. Meanwhile, Ariana was touched that Jake was trying to shield her from Mr. Paganis. She boldly stepped beside her adoptive brother and squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Come along, Miss Grace," Mr. Paganis said. "Why are you detaining me? What laws of your nation am I accused of breaking?" she replied. She asked him those questions because she wanted to know if he had found out that she had disguised herself as his student, Dawson Connolly. If that were the case, she wouldn't be able to use the disguise when the remaining immortal spirit fruit ripened and she returned to get it. "I'm detaining you because I want your divine phoenix blood. It will be useful to us," Mr. Paganis said. Rage threatened to overwhelm Ariana, but with a supreme effort of willpower, she managed to remain calm. When she could speak without shouting, she said, "You don't respect my bodily autonomy." Mr. Paganis said coldly, "I don't respect anyone's bodily autonomy." Ariana was repulsed by his presumptuousness. She had lots of experience in dealing with presumptuous men like him. Lord Russell Reynolds had presumed he could kill his wife and blame it on Ariana, so she had to vanquish him. Her uncle Grayson had presumed he could get the Grace clan's elders to agree to disown Ariana and her entire side of the family. She had vanquished him too. The list went on and on. Ariana asked Mr. Paganis, "What if I refuse to come with you?" He replied, "I'll hurt you." Ariana gave him a stony-eyed stare. She didn't look frightened. Then she turned to the Peacock King and bowed respectfully. "Oh, esteemed monarch," she said to the bird, "let's make a deal." Once again, Mr. Paganis felt a grudging admiration for her. Powerful cultivators of all ages were justifiably afraid of the Peacock King, but Ariana was not. She and the mighty bird were on cordial terms. The Peacock King was tempted to accept Ariana's offer. For a long time, he had relied on the Blue Sky Kingdom to supply him with strength-enhancing medicines. But they were inferior in quality to the semi-divine golden crow pill she had shown him earlier in the day. "Let's make a deal," she repeated. "Just name your price." Yet again, silence descended on the scene. Then suddenly, the bird raised his foot and pointed two of his sharp talons in her direction. Mr. Paganis forced himself not to scowl. Mr. Paganis didn't want Ariana to know how angry he was that she was trying to buy the Peacock King's loyalty. Night Owl's powerful teacher had offered the Peacock King one magical pill before they had set off to find Ariana. Now the mighty bird had indicated he would take Ariana's magical pills instead, if she would give him 2 of them. She said,
"Oh, esteemed monarch, I can do better than that. There are 3 different options for you to ponder."
The bird looked startled.
"If you don't interfere in my conflict with Mr. Paganis, I'll give you 4 pills. If you promise to prevent him from pursuing me and my brother while we make our escape, I'll give you 8 pills,"
she said. The bird looked even more startled. Ariana continued.
"If you promise to kill Mr. Paganis for me, I'll give you 10 pills."
The bird squawked in surprise, while Mr. Paganis harumphed. Neither of them believed she could produce that much magic medicine. Ariana kept her eyes trained on the Peacock King.
"I'm an honorable young woman," she told the bird. "I wouldn't offer you something that wasn't mine to give. Which option do you find the most satisfactory?"
Ariana would come out as the winner no matter what choice the bird made. By entertaining a deal with her, the cruel creature had just shattered his alliance with the Blue Sky Kingdom. Mr. Paganis would never trust him again. The Peacock King wasn't about to ask for 10 pills. Killing Mr. Paganis would require too much effort and cause too many repercussions. But the bird was very tempted by the other 2 options. He couldn't decide whether to take 4 pills in exchange for doing absolutely nothing, or get twice as many pills for helping Ariana and Jake make their escape. Suddenly, Mr. Paganis decided he wasn't going to put up with any more impertinence from Ariana. He thought, "Why am I just standing here and letting her try to hire the Peacock King to kill me? Her behavior is outrageous." He thundered, "Young woman, be silent." Once again, Ariana gave him a stony-eyed stare. He shouted, "You've got a lot of nerve." She thought, "I'd managed to upset him. Good." A group of Mr. Paganis' underlings had appeared on the scene in time to hear Ariana's dramatic offer to the Peacock King. The group included General Gooch, Master Inti, Dawson, Yolanda Gataki, and several skilled assassins. Master Inti decided it was time to interrupt the conversation because she wanted to show her support for Mr. Paganis. Though powerful men of Mr. Paganis' ilk usually preferred to hear themselves talk, Master Inti imagined he would be pleased if she started scolding Ariana on his behalf. "You there?" she said rudely. "You don't know what you're talking about. Semi-divine golden crow pills are extremely hard to produce. You couldn't possibly make 10 of them." Ariana gave her a stony-eyed stare, too. Ariana took a long, appraising look at each of the members of the group that had heard her offer multiple magical pills to the Peacock King. When her eyes fell on Dawson, he feared he might faint. "Oh no," he thought frantically. "The evil sorceress is back. What if she tells everybody about what she did to me? What if she hurts my master?" Then Ariana fixed her eyes on the Peacock King and continued her negotiations with him. "You've seen one of my semi-divine golden crow pills," she told the bird. "You know they're high-quality medicine." He nodded enthusiastically. He was torn between 2 irresistibly attractive options she had offered him. The bird could get 4 pills if he agreed to refrain from interfering in the conflict between Ariana and Mr. Paganis. The bird could get 8 pills if he promised to prevent Mr. Paganis from pursuing Ariana and Jake when they escaped from the forest. The third option seemed like much too much trouble to the bird, so he had already dismissed it. It required him to kill Mr. Paganis in exchange for receiving 10 pills. Once again, Master Inti decided it was time to interrupt the conversation. She wanted to remind Mr. Paganis she was a talented medicine refiner, even if she singed eyebrows and burned clothes from her accident with a flaming cauldron suggested otherwise. She said, "Oh, Peacock King, don't be taken in by this young woman's spurious claims." Ariana gave Master Inti another long, appraising look. Master Inti stared right back. The Blue Sky Kingdom's medicine refiner thought, "She was gorgeous. She looks like a goddess. That's not fair to the rest of us." Master Inti recalled that Yolanda had downplayed Ariana's beauty when describing her. Yolanda must be jealous of this young woman, the doctor thought. Master Inti had a hard time acknowledging she was jealous too, but she was so consumed with envy that she couldn't even say Ariana's name in her glum musings. "I heard she's a genius," Master Inti thought sourly. "So what?" She sighed and then thought, "I heard she's got divine phoenix blood coursing through her veins. So what?" Then the doctor decided to go on the offensive. "Semi-divine golden crow pills are a precious resource. They're very difficult to make. The fact that you'd offer the Peacock King 10 of them at a time proves you're a charlatan," she said. Yet again, Ariana deployed her stony-eyed stare. Master Inti struck a dignified pose, but the effect was undermined by her singed eyebrows and burned clothes. "I know what I'm talking about," she said. "I'm a supreme-level medicine refiner." Jake snickered audibly. Master Inti barreled on. She turned to the Peacock King and pointed dramatically at Ariana as she said, "This young woman is a fraud." The Peacock King thought perhaps Master Inti was jealous of Ariana. He had seen one of her semi-divine golden crow pills and knew it was a high-quality medicine. Ariana willed herself to be calm, and she willed herself to be patient. She thought, "Nobody ever believes I'm a semi-divine medicine refiner. I'll have to give them a demonstration of my skills." Mr. Paganis and his underlings thought Ariana was making empty promises to the Peacock King. They felt sure she couldn't produce the semi-divine golden crow pills. They felt sure she couldn't produce the semi-divine golden crow pills she had offered the beastly monarch in exchange for his help. Master Inti, who was jealous of Ariana's beauty, brains, and bloodline, thought, "She's not an accomplished medicine refiner like I am." Ariana ignored the sneering onlookers. She told the Peacock King, "I'll make you some magical medicine right now. That way, you can see how easy it is for me to produce it." The Peacock King finally spoke. "Yes," he said, "please do so." Master Inti thought, "Wait, what? We're standing in the dark heart of the forest. How can she refine medicine out here?" Mr. Paganis felt a stab of impatience. He thought, "She was delaying the inevitable. I should detain her now so I can drain her divine phoenix blood as soon as possible." Suddenly, a tiny cauldron materialized in midair, and Ariana got down to business. Mr. Paganis and his underlings were as skeptical as Master Harper had been about Ariana's talent. They didn't believe she was a semi-divine medicine refiner. But wonderful herbal aromas soon started wafting out of the cauldron. The Peacock King and the sacred imperial spider exchanged a conspiratorial glance. The spider felt proud of Ariana, whom she had thought of as a friend. Mr. Paganis felt a stab of dismay. He wondered, "Is it possible she's making medicines out here in the open air?" Jake wanted to enlist the two Beast Kings' support, so he shouted at the teacher, "You mustn't imprison Ariana in the Blue Sky Kingdom and keep all the medicine she refines for yourself." The peacock and the spider both snarled. The Peacock King said firmly, "Mr. Paganis, don't interrupt Miss Grace while she's working." The Sacred Imperial Spider said, "Give her a chance to demonstrate her skills." Once again, Mr. Paganis forced himself not to scowl. He was certain he could vanquish the spider if she fought alone, but he thought he might get killed if she and the bird teamed up against him. So he would have to give in to the creature's demands. He said tersely, "Miss Grace has 2 hours to prove she's not a charlatan." He wondered if he should surreptitiously cause some type of accident that would disrupt Ariana's work process. He would certainly do so if there was a good chance she might not be able to make magical pills with her tiny cauldron. He glanced at Master Inti and hoped she would give him a subtle signal on how to proceed. But Master Inti didn't believe in subtlety. She proclaimed loudly, "This young woman can't possibly be a semi-divine medicine refiner. The Blue Sky Kingdom has just one of them, and there aren't any in the Mystic Kingdom." Mr. Paganis was a superstar teacher. He was possessed of godlike intelligence. He knew everything that had happened in the course of human history, but he knew next to nothing about medicine refining, so he counted on Master Inti's expertise. He didn't realize that extreme jealousy clouded her judgment about Ariana's skill level. Ariana had become accustomed to having people stand right in front of her and talk about her as though she weren't there. So she ignored Master Inti's rude pronouncement and stayed focused on her task. Once again, silence descended on the scene. Master Inti had great faith in her own opinions. But as she watched Ariana work, she began to wonder if perhaps, just this once, she had been mistaken. "This young woman moves like a real pro," Master Inti thought in dismay. "She does calculations in her head. There's magic in her aura." As it turned out, Ariana didn't need 2 hours to finish making a semi-divine golden crow pill for the Peacock King. After she had toiled for just a few minutes, the flames surrounding her tiny cauldron suddenly hissed, and a splendid scent filled the air. Ariana exclaimed, "Excelsior!" And beneath the bottom of the cauldron, a small dish materialized. On it lay a bead-shaped pill that glowed like a summer sunrise. The Peacock King fanned out his fabulous tail feathers and strutted gleefully. "She's made a semi-divine golden crow pill for me," he squawked. Once again, the Sacred Imperial Spider felt proud of Ariana, whom she thought of as a friend. Mr. Paganis couldn't control his facial expressions any longer. He scowled furiously. He turned his angry eyes toward Master Inti, whose face was ashen. "It seems you were wrong about Miss Grace's skills, which are astonishing," he said frostily. Master Inti ardently wished the earth would swallow her up. Of course, it didn't. Though she was only a supreme-level medicine refiner, she knew a semi-divine golden crow pill when she saw one. She knew the Peacock King was right. Ariana had made him some magical medicine. Master Inti mumbled, "It seems I was wrong." Mr. Paganis felt a stab of vexation. "I need this young woman's divine phoenix blood," he thought, "but I can't take too much of it from her. She must stay healthy so she can work as a semi-divine medicine refiner for me." He reached out to grab Ariana, but she and Jake had ducked behind the Peacock King and the sacred Imperial Spider. Mr. Paganis's vexation turned into full-fledged fury. He slugged the Peacock King in the head. The bird raked the teacher with his sharp talons and scratched him. Everybody gasped. Dawson hid behind Mr. Paganis's more capable underlings and stared at Ariana. He was more convinced than ever that she was a sorceress. But now he thought of her as a sorceress with the power to make healing medicines. What an astute strategist she is, he thought admiringly. She's managed to stay out of my master's clutches, and she's provoked him to fight with the powerful Peacock King. Mr. Paganis pressed a handkerchief to his wounds to stop the bleeding. Then he decided to try a little diplomacy. "Esteemed Avian King," he said, "we began our alliance before Miss Grace was even born. It's been a very productive one. Your continued loyalty would mean the world to me." The bird regarded him in silence. The teacher continued, "If you let me take Miss Grace to the Blue Sky Kingdom, I'll have her produce as many high-quality pills for you as you wish without requiring you to make deals with her." The Peacock King was intrigued. He could make things easy for himself and get all the strength-enhancing medicines he wanted if he let Mr. Paganis detain Ariana. The feathered creature had been tempted to accept Ariana's earlier offer of 8 magical pills, but he hadn't wanted to fulfill the terms of her proposed agreement. It required him to prevent Mr. Paganis from pursuing her and her brother while they escaped from the woods. That sounded like a lot of work. While the peacock pondered, the teacher spoke to the sacred Imperial Spider. He said, "Esteemed Arachnid, if you let me take Miss Grace to the Blue Sky Kingdom, I'll renew my offer to refrain from seeking retribution for your appalling gluttony." The spider had eaten 50 of Mr. Paganis's finest assassins. The sacred Imperial Spider gave the matter some thought. She realized the Peacock King was inclined to side with Mr. Paganis. If that turned out to be the case, the spider would have to battle Night Owl's powerful tutor without the bird's support. That would disrupt the usual order of things, which was that the Beast Kings teamed up when one of them decided to fight against human beings. But the spider wanted to show her loyalty to Ariana, who was the first friend the arachnid ever had made. Friends should protect each other, the spider thought. Besides, the spider disapproved of Mr. Paganis's intention to deprive Ariana of her liberty to serve his own needs. Ariana doesn't deserve to be punished, she thought. She didn't commit any crimes. I'm the one who ate Mr. Paganis's underlings. The arachnid was more determined than ever to side with Ariana. Though neither of the Beast Kings said a word, Mr. Paganis intuited that one of them was willing to hand Ariana over to him, and the other wasn't. He wanted to scream with frustration. He thought, "If I don't get her out of here soon, a horde of fighters from the Mystic Kingdom is going to show up, and then things will get complicated." His musings were interrupted when a beautiful young man and his faithful friend strode onto the scene and stood before him. "Anyone who lays a hand on Princess Ariana will die," the beautiful young man exclaimed. He had a glorious countenance and a thunderous voice. Mr. Paganis's underlings gasped. Even those who had never met the beautiful young man knew he was the Mystic Kingdom's crown prince. His regal bearing and ferocious demeanor left no room for doubt. Though the teacher's underlings didn't know it, Warwick's faithful friend was Pete. Dawson began trembling when he saw Warwick's stern face. Master Inti was mesmerized. The Peacock King darted behind Mr. Paganis, closed up his huge tail, and tried to be inconspicuous. The sacred imperial spider was afraid of Warwick, even though she thought of herself as Ariana's ally. Mr. Paganis' underlings knew Warwick was the pride and joy of his nation. A genius appeared in every other generation of the Mystic Kingdom's royal family, and Warwick was that genius. He gave off an extraordinarily intimidating aura that was completely convincing because he was wearing a jade plate that concealed his spiritual ranking. Those who gazed upon him couldn't tell that his spiritual essence had been dangerously depleted by his epic battle with Night Owl. When Ariana saw Warwick, she was sure she was hallucinating. For a moment, she shut her eyes to clear her vision. When she opened them, he was still standing there. "He's here," she thought. "He's here. He's come to save my life once again." She ran to him and flung herself into his arms. "My prince," she whispered. His black eyes glittered with longing as he studied the contours of her beautiful face. He inhaled the scent of her hair, and it smelled like roses. Ariana raised her lips to his and kissed him. Warwick's breath caught. The onlookers gasped. Ariana had become accustomed to having strangers stare at her while she shared private moments with the crown prince. So she ignored them and just kept on kissing him. In the middle of their embrace, she slid a hand down his back. Her wide sleeve slid his posterior from everyone's view, so nobody saw her jab him with a needle and inject him with the golden potion she had made for him from the immortal spirit fruit. The potion would restore his cultivation abilities. She felt Warwick flinch when she stabbed him with the needle. She stopped kissing him long enough to whisper, "Trust me." He stood very still so she could finish giving him the shot. Master Inti, who was jealous of Ariana's beauty, brains, and bloodline, thought, "That shameless hussy! That shameless hussy!" Ariana finished Warwick's injection and hid the empty syringe in her sleeve. Then she held her hand beside his ear so no one could lip-read her whispered words. "I used immortal spirit fruit to make a medicine that will restore your cultivation abilities," she told him. He understood instantly that she had risked her life in a war zone to find a remedy that would save him from despair. "You're my guardian angel," he thought. "You're my brave fiancé." Tears sprang into his eyes. He longed to ask her 1,000 questions. How did she know there was an immortal spirit tree in the dark heart of the forest? Warwick wondered. How many enemy combatants did she have to kill to get her hands on its fruit? But he couldn't speak without sobbing, so he clasped her hand, kissed it, and held it to his heart. Master Holmes suddenly appeared on the scene in the company of Master Madden and several other mighty fighters. Master Harper and her niece, Dr. Harper, arrived shortly thereafter. Master Holmes was a shy person. He blushed like a schoolboy when he saw Ariana and Warwick wrapped in each other's arms. Master Madden was pleased the two young people had the opportunity to share a kiss, even in the middle of a potentially deadly conflict with their nation's warring enemy. He had spent his long lifetime reading the works of great poets, so he knew that passionate love could set the world on fire. He gently reminded shy Master Holmes of how proud the esteemed elder had been of Ariana when he had discovered she was the Sphinx Academy's bona fide genius. "The Crown Prince is a worthy suitor of our school's very own semi-divine medicine refiner," Master Madden murmured. Master Holmes smiled as he thought, Everybody at the military academy will be furious the crown prince is in love with someone from our school instead of theirs." Ariana was tempted to give Warwick a second kiss, but she realized Mr. Paganis might attack them if they stayed locked in an embrace for much longer. Reluctantly, she relinquished her grasp on Warwick. But suddenly he whispered, "Don't leave me. I need your help." She could feel him tremble a little. She knew that sheer willpower had enabled Warwick to get out of his sickbed and come to her rescue. His former strength was gone. She knew her golden potion wouldn't instantaneously restore his strength. It would take several minutes to reach his energy center and reactivate his spiritual essence. So she tucked herself under his left shoulder and wrapped her arm around him to help him stand steadily on his feet. And together, they faced Mr. Paganis. Jake drew his sword, stepped forward, and stood on Warwick's right-hand side. Ariana was his adoptive sister, and Warwick was his lifelong friend. He would die for both of them without hesitation. Pete drew his sword, stepped forward, and stood on Jake's right-hand side. Pete suddenly recalled his sprint with Warwick from the fortress to the forest. Though Warwick had lost his cultivation abilities, he had run incredibly fast. Pete thought, Warwick doesn't need Ariana's help to keep him standing upright. He wants her by his side because he loves her. Pete felt a stab of empathy. In the silence of his heart, he was hopelessly, helplessly in love with Ariana. He thought the sun rose in her eyes. But Warwick was his best friend, and he was the future king. Pete would never, ever tell a living soul how he felt about her. His reverie was suddenly interrupted by a frosty comment from Mr. Paganis, who had been staring coldly at Warwick. "Your Royal Highness," the tutor said icily. "I can't believe you're back on your feet again." Mr. Paganis was furious. He had been so close to capturing Ariana, but Warwick's sudden arrival had complicated the situation. "Why isn't he still in a coma like my protege, Night Owl?" the teacher thought. He saw how heavily Warwick leaned on Ariana for support as they stood before him. "She's the only thing that's keeping him standing upright," Mr. Paganis thought. "Despite his bluster, he's weak. I'll bet he hasn't recovered his spiritual essence." The teacher didn't realize Ariana had given the Crown Prince an injection during their embrace. The golden potion in the syringe needed several minutes to work its way through his system and restore his strength. Warwick didn't reply to Mr. Paganis' frosty remark about the state of his health. For the second time that day, he exclaimed, "Anyone who lays a hand on Princess Ariana will die." Mr. Paganis fixed him with a withering stare. "Duly noted, Your Royal Highness," the teacher said dryly. Yet again, silence descended on the scene. Warwick's black eyes glittered with menace. Mr. Paganis allowed the silence to lengthen uncomfortably. Then he said, "You've come to rescue Miss Grace. How touching. As I'm sure you realize, you'll have to fight us first." Both sides had highly capable combatants. On the Mystic Kingdom side, Master Holmes and Master Harper were peak spiritual overlords. Master Madden was an intermediate spiritual overlord, and so were 10 of their subordinates. On the Blue Sky Kingdom side, Mr. Paganis was a junior spiritual saint. 6 of his subordinates were intermediate spiritual overlords. General Gooch was a junior spiritual overlord. The two Beast Kings reacted immediately to Mr. Paganis's words. The Peacock King shouted, "We don't wish to be involved in your conflict." The sacred imperial spider gave an angry snarl. She wanted to show her loyalty to Ariana, who was the first friend she had ever made. Yet again, the spider thought, friends should protect each other. But because of the cooperative agreements among the 7 Beast Kings, the spider couldn't participate in the battle because the Peacock King had chosen not to. She cast a regretful glance at Ariana and then climbed into the treetops with the bird to watch the upcoming fight. Mr. Paganis was annoyed the powerful creatures weren't going to fight by his side. The peacock had been a longtime ally of his. He scowled as he strategized about the best way to vanquish Warwick, who was bristling with hostility and seemed thoroughly intimidating. The Crown Prince was superior to his protege Night Owl in every possible way. Mr. Paganis felt a sudden stab of jealousy on Night Owl's behalf. "I'll permanently disable Warwick while his spiritual essence is depleted," the teacher thought. "I'll cut him down to size." Mr. Paganis knew that if he inflicted terrible humiliation on the Crown Prince, the young man's recovery would be impeded and his ability to cultivate would be crippled. "Your Royal Highness," Mr. Paganis said, "there's no need to involve all our fighters. This conflict is between you and me." The onlookers gasped. Warwick stood in silence. Ariana hugged him tightly. Mr. Paganis said, "If you can withstand 3 strikes from me, Miss Grace will be free to return to your fortress with you." The onlookers gasped again. Warwick's black eyes glittered with defiance. Ariana hugged him even more tightly. But Mr. Paganis wasn't finished yet. "You look frightened, Your Royal Highness," the teacher said. He was an accomplished liar, so he made this falsehood sound like a true statement. "If you're daunted by my fighting prowess, you can battle one of my less formidable subordinates instead of me," Mr. Paganis said. "How about Dawson Connolly?" Mr. Paganis's underlings gasped. Dawson was just a boy. Warwick's supporters gasped too, when the teacher dragged his disciple out of the crowd. The boy looked so young and powerless. Dawson feared he might faint. Terror gripped his soul.